Hey guys, OGalbina here, bringing you guys our SBT Conquer Season 10 movie. Yes, another movie of another Showdown League already. I played in a lot recently that I really want to kind of just get out there because I had some really fun with the runs. Now, those of you who are new to the channel might not know that we played in SBT Conquerors, which is their highest division, Season 9. We made finals against JCM Shadow. We had a great season with an awesome team with Mega Galade, Age of Slash, Salamence, a bunch of fan favorites, just awesome mods. And at the end of that season, through spoilers in 3, 2, 1, we lost. We got trashed by a really cool Mega DNC set from JCM that kind of invalidated our Age of Slash, which in turn kind of invalidated our whole team. I had a really cool dual statusing Starmie that put in a lot of work, so it was a really tough game. And we got outplayed and outprepped in finals, and sometimes it's just like that. Obviously, finals is the highest stage, and you're gonna get the best of the best of some people. So we were unfortunately not able to take home the win there. However, we're coming back this next season. JCM's not in the league, so maybe that's our chance to make it back to finals and win this time. I would love to. If you guys are excited for this movie, our whole season, including playoffs. Spoilers, we do make playoffs, or I wouldn't be uploading this. Be sure to drop a like and sub to the channel. We are so close to 1,000 subs, and I would really appreciate if you help me along getting to that goal. We are going to be doing a giveaway of 2 Scarlet and Violet copies once we hit 1,000, as long as it's before Scarlet and Violet come out. So if you want to be interested in that, be sure to drop a sub and stick around for more news on that once we hit the goal, as well as drop in the comments what you'd like to see for 1,000 subs special. I also did a community post about that, but if there's any cool commemorative video you think we could do, or just a cool video in general that you'd love to see when we hit 1,000 subs, let me know in the comments below, as well as what you think of the team in the run. Alright, that being said, let's jump into it. This season, we weren't blessed with a top 5 pick like we were last time, getting Mega Galade and then somehow Age of Slash on the way back, and a bunch of craziness, right? This time we were down 12, 13, 14, something like that. I can actually check the specific number, I suppose. I have the doc pulled up, I just don't want to spoil results. 13, 14, 15, 16. We are at pick 12. There was nothing on the board that I wanted. For reference, Victini, Clefable, Mega Scizor, and Rillaboom all went after me. Those were the picks after me. Mega Scizor is the one I love using, but I had in another league at this time, so I didn't want to use it again. And then I'm not big on Clef. I don't think Teeny's a round 1 mon, and Rillaboom, I just wasn't super interested in using at pick 12 personally. So I went with a little bit of a controversial pick, and you'll see him sitting right here. Arguably, I could have taken the other Pokemon behind him before him, but that's going to be Galarian Slowking. I haven't used this thing in a full season yet. I haven't. Now, we have it in our SummerSlam run right now, which you guys are slowly seeing uploaded, but this was before that, and we also had it in our BBT tournament run. But those are 2 tournaments. I hadn't gotten to use Slowking for a full season, so I had to give it a shot, and I feel like it's a really easy mon to throw pieces around and really make it succeed. This Pokemon's amazing. I was definitely, over time, I've become a G-King stan, going from G-King hater and doubter to just G-King lover, because this spawn's just Jesus in draft. This thing with an Assault Vest and Regen is typically what you're going to see on it a good 70% of times, I would think. Really because of that coverage. Look at this insane coverage this thing really can have access to. That plus Regenerator and its really chunky Spadef stat. And honestly, a solid physically defensive typing, resisting really key physical types as well as with good investment. You'd be pretty annoying physically defensive, being really strong as well. This thing can be really annoying with Sludge Bomb, Future Sight, Psychic, and then a bunch of other coverage moves that it gets. Ice Beam, Flamethrower, Grass Knot for some reason, Focus Blast, Earthquake, a bunch of really cool things, right? So G-King was a really fun piece that I really want to build around initially. It also can run cool slack off sets with Colberberry, Shuckleberry, things like that with for good resist good resist berry options. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. I just got off of work. I'll hone it in for the rest of this movie. I promise. Only a couple more stumbles. In conjunction with Calm Mind or Nasty Plot is a good way to boost special attack. It's good with Weakness Policy as well. I've seen Weakness Policy Trick Room put in a ton of work. So this Pokemon is legitimately incredibly solid, and I'm really excited to use it this season. I think JCM actually had it when he beat us last season. I could be tripping, but I feel like he also had this thing. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But I'm really excited to use it for a full season. Hopefully we can use it well. Next up, though, we ended up grabbing Zeraora, which is a Pokemon I absolutely love using, and getting it round 2 is really fun. That's kind of the benefit to being on the later end of the draft. We're not necessarily towards the wheel, but we can still get some pretty cool stuff round 2 in Zera here. Ridiculously fast 143, really outspeeding the most relevant fast Pokemon in the format, and Dragapult at 142 is incredibly nice, as well as being great with heavy duty boots, or being good with a Life Orb, a Band, or Resist Berry like a Shuka, or, a bunch of cool different options. It can bulk up, it can Calm Mind, it can be mixed, physical, special, a bunch of different other stuff, and it provides great speed control, and it's a very solid breaker. in a lot of matchups. Even with its mediocre attacking stats, you can typically go adamant or modest or at least a boosting nature in those and do a lot of damage to a lot of teams and be really, really annoying. Spread knockoffs, taunts, a bunch of fun stuff. So I really like Zera. I think it's going to be really, really solid on this team, and I'm hoping it does well. It was kind of just a case of picking the best 2 Mons left on the board, or picking G-King and then the best Mon left on the board, in my opinion. So pretty excited about this one. Round 3, I grabbed another absolute favorite of mine in Zapdos. I really like this thing alongside Zeraora. It actually pivots in on a lot of ground types really, really easy, despite it being a more offensive variant of Zapdos and typically being used more offensively. I think it's very, very solid as like a pivot into certain threats and certain pieces and things like that. It's really able to come in, click Brave Bird, close combat, U-turn, Thunderous Kick, and do a lot of damage. It's great with a Scarf. It's phenomenal with a Band or a Life Orb. Even with Boots to avoid Rock Chip, it's great. And it also breaks down those grasses that Zera really doesn't like. So it forms a pretty potent Volt Turn core alongside Zera, which I think can be really, really clutch and do a lot of damage to a lot of teams. So I'm definitely really excited about that. Next up, we grab some more regen button. Of course, when you grab Slowking, you gotta grab a regen mon, and Tangrowth is really good with Slowking, resisting ground, which is a really, really important thing when you have G-King, in my opinion, as well as being a more physically defensive regen mon. Now, it's still great with an Assault Vest, and kind of for the opposite reasons. G-King, it can invest pretty heavily in its Spadef, but still be a good Fizz-Duff wall, which is really, really cool. It has solid coverage, it can knock things, Focus Blast, Giga Drain, Leaf Storm, Earthquake, a bunch of cool options like that. It can be Leech, it can Sleep Powder, it can be great with a Rocky Helmet. It really is just that Fizz-Def regen pivot to pair along with our first pick and Slowking, and they kind of complement each other very, very well when it comes to defensive typings, especially Tangrowth complementing Slowking. Maybe not Slowking as much for complementing Tangrowth, but they're both still very, very solid together, right? Now, we got some more chunk coming in Mega Aggron. Really, really fun Pokemon. I want a good, sturdy steel type to grab for this team. It also gives me a very, very reliable Stealth Rock, which I think is really, really important on a team like this, to chip things down as we Volt turn around with our offensive core and switch around with our regen core. Having rocks up reliably is going to be a very, very important aspect of this team. This thing with Filter alongside its monstrous defense stat, really allowing it to go pretty much max for def all the time, makes it really, really tough to take down in one hit. Heavy Slam plus Earthquake or Body Press, which is a great tool this thing got this generation, is incredibly solid. It could be a Cursed Sweeper. I love Cursed Rest Talk Mega Aggron. It is very, very difficult to deal with, even if teams do have, you know, super effective coverage for it. If it's not special, you're not really breaking through this thing after it gets a curse up, which I think can be really, really clutch. It can Toxic things. It can even Thunder Wave things, which is a really cool aspect of it as well. It can roar things around and phase them out. That's a really, really good mon to kind of complement our Tangrowth and our Slowking up to this point, which is, again, really, really solid. So, excited to get Aggron. And I got another reliable rocker next, as well as our water type in Seismitoad, as well as our ground type here. Again, reliable rocks, scalds things, knocks things off, burns things. Really just spreads a lot of passive damage to things like Zeraora and Zapdos to come in and do a lot of damage, which I think is really, really clutch. Now, I always end up running like a Swift Swim set or two throughout the season as well, because I know that's another option that Toad can run. And I think it's really solid in a lot of matches, especially when people, you know, prep for that fat Fizz Def or Super Def Toad. This is going to be spreading Scald Burns and Toxics and things like that. They come in on that Toad as it Rain Dances and then Surfs or Weather Balls and just 2-hit KOs or OHKOs your whole team with Surf plus Earth Power plus like Sludge Wave. And it does have good coverage and like Ice Punch, Sludge Wave, Knockoff, things like that. So yeah, 2 really reliable rockers, which again I think is really, really important with our team. Gives us our water, our ground, and our steel. So we kind of are really rounding out that defensive core right now. But I want to dip a little bit more into the offense with the next pick in our Lycan Rock Dust. Now, what Lycan Rock Dust does for us, it gives us a nice 110 speed tier, which I think is definitely really clutch. We have some really fast stuff in Zeraora. Zapdos, which is a little bit middling. Now, it's going to be Scarf a lot, which can kind of make up for it, but Lycan Rock Dust kind of bridges that gap to where, you know, opposing 115s and things like that can't run Adamant and Modest versus us, which is really important. It also gives us a great physical breaker. Another rocker, now a more offensive rocker, and I probably don't want to use it like that very often this season, but it's a rocker nonetheless. Great priority options in a Cell Rock and Sucker Punch, which are boosted by Tough Claws. This thing is really strong if you can find a way to position it well. And with things like Zeraora, Zapdos, and good aggressive doubles and things like that, I think we can definitely position ourselves to do so. So I'm definitely really excited for Lycan Rock Dust. It can also Swords Dance in a pinch, but I think it's hard to set up Swords Dances on a Pokemon that is as frail as Lycan Rock Dust and as liable to get chipped down and taken out with Life Orb plus Helmet and things like that. But great mon, really strong. Stone Edge, Close Combat, and Cell Rock usually just kind of rip through everything, as well as like Crunch, Sucker Punch, Play Rough, all that cool stuff. Iron Head. So great, great coverage. Very, very strong mon. Very strong. Okay, I know we just talked about offense. We're going to go back to the other side of the Pokemon. and go back to defense, we gotta grab some more regen button in our Audino. This is going to give us a ghost resist, which, spoilers, our dark type, which is coming next, does not resist ghost. So try and guess what it is before then, but does not resist ghost. And our regen core kind of gets smashed by a good offensive ghost type, especially a good special one, because our spit off wall is kind of chunked by them right now. So I want to get a good ghost resist, or immunity, I suppose, in this point. Audino has a little bit of trouble in the sense that it can be kind of passive and taunt fodder, but I think a well-played Audino is still very solid between knockoff, wish, heal bell, encore, toxic, thunder wave. It's never going to come in here and do any type of damage, but what it is going to do is it's going to be very annoying, and it's going to support the rest of your team very well, and I think it does so really well. It's also a great Wishpasser for things like Seismitoad, Zapdos, and Mega Aggron especially, which I think is, again, incredibly clutch and very solid for our team. So Audino is just a good old reliable normal type that kind of covers the rest of our team well and gives us that triple regen, baby. Alright, second to last, we're going to use up a good majority of our points next to try another Pokemon I'm really excited to use, and it's a Pokemon in my 5, 6, however many years of draft playing that I have not gotten the opportunity to use, and that's Hoopa Unbound. This Pokemon is Wall Breaker Incarnate. 170 special attack, 160 attack. Ridiculously strong. Now, obviously, there are downsides, hence why it's not drafted actually very often. And that 80 base speed, and that 60 base defense, and that 4 times weakness to U-turn, which is tough because a lot of Pokemon get U-turn and can pivot out of Hoopa if they live a hit, or just outspeed it. So it's gonna be really tough. I think this thing with a Scarf is a great revenge killer. With a Band or Specs, it's just wall-breaking monster. Life Orb, same thing. And Assault Vest is a really viable option. If you got base 130 Spit Def and 80 HP, with an Assault Vest, this one is really tough to take down with a special move, even if it's like a Signal Beam in Gen 7 or something like that. So I think Hoopa is really solid. And look at this thing's coverage. It's just absolutely insane. This Pokemon's awesome. It tricks to cripple things as well. It can even trick Room, which is really cool. I believe it gets Destiny Bond as well. Yeah, it gets Destiny Bond as well. So like choice variants really benefit from Trick and Destiny Bond, which is also really cool. It can Nasty Plot or Calm Mind, probably Nasty Plot, which is also really solid. Just a freaking strong Pokemon overall, man. So I'm really excited to use this thing. This is a Pokemon I've been wanting to try for years, and I finally found the excuse to draft it. So, and add some much needed offense to our team, because it was kind of just like, what do you call it? Zera, Zap, and then Lycan Dusk, which Lycan Dusk isn't a Pokemon that's going to come to every week, unfortunately. Neither is Hoopa, but between 4 strong breakers, I think these Mons really complement and kind of round out our balance, minus the fact that we don't have a Fairy type yet. And I will not lie to you, I solely drafted a Fairy because I was really scared of Urshifu Single Strike, and I knew I'd probably be playing one this season, and despite me kind of covering all the other roles a Fairy needs to resist with my regen fat herder core, I wanted at least something to pivot into that thing, and the only thing I could find in the point values that I had left was Togetic. Now, in hindsight, I really wish I didn't draft this thing. This is the one member of this team that I hated, and I will tell you right now, it came to the Urshifu matchup, and that is it. I said I was going to trade it, but there was nothing left, so he sat on the bench the rest of the season after that game, and before that game. I'm not a big fan of this thing. I'll probably talk about it more in the battle, but it's okay if you switch into Urshifu, but if you're just going to get U-turned on, rocks are up, and then you're going to get exploited by the rest of the team, you're kind of playing right into Urshifu's hands. So I really wish I didn't make the rookie mistake of drafting a Pokemon to draft a Pokemon typing. But Togetic's here, he's part of the team, so maybe, I don't know, man. I was going to say maybe he could pull his weight, but I just told you guys he doesn't. So, not my favorite Pokemon in the world, but the rest of the team is really cool, especially this guy. I'm really excited to use this guy. But yeah, that's the team. I'll be right back with week 1. Alrighty guys, week 1 we are going up against Mams. I believe we actually played Mams either like week 1 or week 2 of last season as well, which is pretty funny. He's one of the owners of SBT as well. He's a really nice guy, and he's got a really scary team consisting of things like Tornti, Megachomp, Feeny, the Zaru, this Gothitelle, that's a demon versus my team, as well as the potential Registeel. So there's a lot of really scary things into our team. But we have a pretty fun squad. Now, this is the one team for this video that I do not have the build of anymore. Months and months ago, I lost all my teams to my team builder, and this was one of them. It was like the first week of this league, like going into week 2 when it happened. So I don't have that team anymore. From week 2 onwards, I'll be able to kind of give you more of a rundown of our team. Now, on like basic memory, I'm watching through the game again. I have a Protective Pad Zapdos, which In hindsight, I don't really remember what it was for. I have a really cool Custap Berry Endeavor, really offensive Seismitoad, which is really good in this game. I have a Choice Scarf Hoopa. I believe I have a Life Orb Lycanroc with Rocks. I have a Shuka Berry Calm Minding Slowking with Sludge Bomb Ice Beam as well, which can do really good if we eliminate the Registeel. And then I have a pretty offensive Zeraora. I don't remember the item particularly though, and it doesn't really show in this game, I don't believe. If it does, we'll kind of see as we go. Alrighty, with that being said though, I think we can jump right into it. We are going to lead off with our Galarian Zapdos as they lead off with their Garchomp. I am just going to U-turn out. You see that they're a little bit slower, even though this is Mega Chomp, or staying regular Chomp with its speed. It seems they didn't creep my max speed Zapdos. I'm not Scarf though, and they see that I'm protective pads, unfortunately, because of the rough skin. This is all good though, because I'm going to elect to go into my offensive Seismitoad right here, as they do elect to get up Stealth Rock. This is fine, I could just get up my own rocks and put myself, oh, I doubled out into Slowking. Just kidding, I'm not rocks in this thing. So yeah, we're going to double out into Slowking. I'm sorry, we'll figure it out. Now, what that was predicting could have been potentially like an offensive Feeny coming in, or like a Torn coming in, or something like that. I'm not particularly sure. We also bluff Colbur pretty hard right here, where he at least has to really scout for it, in my opinion. So this is definitely going to be interesting. We're going to pivot out into our Zapdos, though, on this potential Darkest Lair, as we are going to see a U-turn. Take a little bit of Rock Chip, which is unfortunate as well, as out comes Torn. Now, I don't have great switch-ins to Torn. I like to make a little bit more of an offensive switch into Lycandusk. It covers, like, a weird U-turn, but it also covers, like, Knock or Hurricane. I will live any of those two hits, and you get a big hit off of this thing elects to Nasty Plot, because Nasty Plot is actually looking like a big threat into my team, so I'd like to be able to get off into Cell Rock, or also even Bluff Scarf, potentially, which could be really, really detrimental into his team. He is going to U-turn, though, for a ridiculous chunk, go into Feeny, and I kind of realize that I'm not going to make any ground if I don't get up rocks. And I don't see his Lycanroc as like a 100% needed like Mon in this matchup. I don't know. I really don't think I need it for sure. So I'm going to elect to get up rocks to kind of chip down things like the Zarude coming in, the Feeny coming in, the Goth coming in, and potentially a non-boots Torn if he does. I'd elect to go that route. So we're going to go ahead and click the rocks here, as he actually reveals to be Scarf and Knockoff, which is really interesting. We're going to have to play around that very particularly. One, because we don't want our Slowking knocked off, and two, we don't want it tricked with the Scarf. That would make that thing essentially useless. So we want to make sure we're very, very careful about that, as we do see the Knockoff come out right here as I do Stealth Rock up. He is going to pivot out into his Registeel, as I believe I double out into my Slowking. But unfortunate, as I am just absolutely hard stuffed walled by this thing. He doesn't know that yet, though. He's going to pivot into Torn as I get into Seismitoad. This is all good, because I just can go right back out into my Slowking, get knocked off, lose my Shuka Berry, but really it's not the biggest deal in the world, as I can kind of just slack off up and go from there. So Zarude's going to come out, kind of wishing I Ice Beam there to get a little bit more offensive initiative, but now we're essentially back at full. I'm going to stay in because I don't expect a Lariat to come out, especially with how bad my opponent's team is into like Zapdos just clicking Brave Bird. So I expected a U-turn out to gain momentum, so I stayed and clicked Slack off as this thing actually revealed Power Whip as I get back up to full. And we're going to see him switch out here, kind of confirming that he is a Choice Scarf variant, as we throw off a big Ice Beam into Torn, do a clean 55%, as I believe the Gothitelle is going to come out on this next Ice Beam. Now, this is really unfortunate. We're not Shed Shell. We have no way of getting out of here. However, if it's not Taunt, we are Calm Mind of our own, so we can kind of beat it in that 1v1 scenario. Fortunately, it does reveal Taunt. However, if this thing is Cosmic Power or Calm Mind, which it does show to be, that means that it can't have any way of hitting our Hoopa, really. And even if it could, it's going to hit us with, like, very, very weak moves, considering it's Cosmic Power, not Calm Mind. If it's, like, Taunt, Calm Mind, Stored Power, Thunderbolt, or something like that, because it doesn't get Signal Beam anymore. So I'm kind of just going to spam attacks at this point, knowing that I'm kind of playing, my opponent's playing with fire a little bit, in the sense that they can get frozen by Ice Beam, then get poisoned by Sludge Bomb, and the way they're playing this also shows me they're most likely rest Stored Power, so this isn't really like a win con, it's just a Trap Glow King or another Mon and win, but they're also playing with fire with crits. As you're going to see, I'm going to Ice Beam right here, bring this thing down low. At this point, I know I kill with a Sludge Bomb crit, so I'm going to go for, no, I go for an Ice Beam, so realizing I'm not really gaining any ground here, I believe I do just go for a Sludge Bomb on this turn, as we do get taunted, and we're going to get the crit and knock this out. Now, I feel bad about this, but again, we were sitting on this field for a little while, and it was kind of bound to happen eventually, and you saw even at like plus whatever it was, I was only doing 27, so my opponent had to set up a little bit more to even get us into 2-hit KO range, so we had a few more turns to potentially do that, and I don't need my Glow King anymore, it's good, but I also don't necessarily need it to win the game, as it actually kind of loses 1v1 to 3 of the 5 Pokemon other than Goth on my opponent's team. So it wasn't super needed, but it got the clutch crit, and now we don't have to deal with Goth for the rest of the game. Next, out comes a Mega Chomp, and unfortunately, I just cannot risk this thing setting up. I know it showed rocks already, but if it's like SD Scale Shot Earthquake, and it gets that up, I kind of just lose the game. So I am just going to stay in and Ice Beam this thing. I will take it out from 71, and I want to ensure that we do so. But we're just going to go down to this Earthquake, which is definitely a smart play. You don't really want to waste the Ice Beam on the one that just kind of 6-0s me at this point. I'm going to go Seismitoad here and just click Ice Punch on this Garchomp. Do a clean 71, which is really, really nice. Registeel is going to come out, and as you see, I'm at 15% right here, which means that I am in my Custat barrier range. I'm going to elect to want to save that in order to get a really clutch Endeavor off on something like Feeny or the Zarude or something like that, or get a Custap Endeavor Ice Punch off on one of these two as well if that ends up being the best play for me. So I'm actually going to elect to pivot right out into my Zapdos just to exert some offensive pressure right here. So we are going to see an Iron Defense though, which is really unfortunate. If I was just Earth Power, I would have been in a good spot. Now, he might have saw that I was adamant based on that damage, so maybe he just knew that he outsped me. Again, a very risky setup turn if I just click Earthquake. I do a ton of damage that first turn, and then again, my opponent has to rest and play with crits and things like that, which is really scary for him. Unfortunately, my Thunder's Kick, again, isn't going to drop his defense. I didn't want to drop my defenses because I knew I lived the body press from there. I wanted to see if I could bait a crit. Fortunately not, though. We're going to get into our Lycanroc, get off some last-ditch 13% with close combat damage, and then go down to a body press. Unfortunately, this kind of means that I do have to sack off my Seismitoad in order to guarantee get an Endeavor off on this thing, because an Endeavor will put this thing in range of our Zapdos' close combat here, so I am going to go ahead and click that button. We're going to get body pressed and go down, but from 16, even a +4 Registeel isn't going to take close combat from Zapdos, so we're going to just go ahead and click that button, put ourselves in a decent position going forward. Next up, we have the Tapu Fini coming out. Unfortunately, I'm kind of forced into a sack scenario. I elect to actually sack off my Zapdos, which I know is interesting with something like Zarude in the back. However, it lost to the other two members, and I felt like my AV Hoopa plus my Zeraora could potentially win the game, or my Scarf Hoopa plus my Zeraora could potentially win the game otherwise. So I feel like I had a little bit better of an out there. I can see what this thing locks into, and then just go right out into my Zeraora and just click a clean Plasma Fist. Now, the reason I click Plasma Fist instead of knockoff is because I really don't think my opponent can afford to get their Zarude knocked off if they are Scarfed. That is their way of winning this game into like my Zeraora and things like that. So I elect to just go ahead and click that button. I am going to go ahead and Plasma Fist right here, knock this guy right out, put myself in a pretty solid position, as the Zarude is going to come out next. Now, being that Zarude came out now instead of after the Fini, I feel pretty comfortable just dropping a big close combat right here and knocking this thing out. I will take a Scarf hit from here potentially, depending on its spread, so I might as well go for it. He's not Scarf. We are going to knock out the Zarude, which is great. And now out comes Fini. All we have to do to guarantee not choke this game away, not guaranteed at least, we're going to go Hoopa, as we do die to a Scarf Moonblast from here, so I am going to go into my Hoopa, get a special attack drop, doesn't matter because we're just going to go down the next turn. Then we're going to go back into our Zeraora and live a subsequent Moonblast, provided we do not get crit, and we don't. So we're going to be able to go into Zera, just click Plasma Fist, and knock out this Tapu Fini for a nice 1-0 victory week 1. Now, obviously, this is a little sloppy play-wise and prep-wise, in all honesty, but we were able to kind of clutch out that end game and put ourselves in a decent position to win the game. So I'm definitely proud of that. And yeah, with that being said, let's jump into our week 2 matchup. Alrighty, guys, week 2 rolls around and we're playing Witcher. He's a really scary team consisting of Single Strike, Nidoqueen, Mega Guard, Serp, Heatran, and the Vikavolt. We have a pretty fun team to try and take this on, though. You can see this is Togetic week. The only week it came, and it was here to check Urshifu, as well as Defog Websway, but we can talk about that more when I show the spreads and the team and stuff. First up, we have our Galarian Slowking, rocking out with its tried and true Assault Vest, Regenerator as ability, obviously Psychic, Sludge Bomb, Scald, and Earthquake. Does pretty solid in this game offensively. Kind of just clicks Sludge Bomb against his entire team. It's really good checking the Heatran as well as the Superior via Earthquake in order to hit that Heatran very hard. And we kind of just Psychic and Sludge Bomb everything else. Scald Rush for something on the bench that I don't remember came. Next up, we have our Wincon in an Agility Bulk Up Double Dancing Zapdos. Galarian has leftovers because it can actually chew up some Adam and Urshifu band hits, which is really cool. It's really good in the end game once we chip down things like Nidoqueen as well as the Vikavolt. It can honestly just kind of set up and win. We also do have to chip down things like Heatran as well, which is really important. But if we do find that opportunity to do Agility and or Bulk Up, if permitting what the circumstance is on something like the Urshifu, we could be in a good spot to win the game. Next up, we have an Eject Packing Zeraora. We play a Nido, so obviously we're bringing Eject Pack. We have Plasma Fist, Bulk Up, close combat, and fire punch. Now, the idea is to close combat the Nidoqueen after a bulk up, or even just close combat it on the switch in, really chip it down, get into something offensive and strong, do a lot of damage, and then later in the game we could potentially bulk up and do a lot of damage against the rest of his team, which is really, really clutch actually. So, just really solid in this game, very strong Pokemon, fire punch for things like Vikavolt and Plasma Fist hits pretty much everything else. Oh, and the Superior. Then we have an Assault Vest Hoopa with Psychic, Focus Blast, Energy Ball, and Gunk Shot. You see that we are Timid Gunk Shot. It nukes guard, and even with just the 24 investment, we live any Hyper Voice from it, which is incredibly clutch. This is a good pivot into things like Special Nidoqueen, as well as even the Heatran, provided we hit our Focus Blast and things like that. Energy Ball, or Psychic and Focus Blast hit this entire team incredibly hard as well. And the things that are resisted by it, those two moves get hit by Gunk Shot very hard, aka the guard, really. So just really solid. Then we have Stupid Togetic. It's a pretty simple set. We have Max Fizz Def with Dazzling Gleam, Defog, Baton Pass, and Roost. It's here to defog rocks away, as well as especially the Sticky Web, which can be really annoying for the rest of our team, especially things like Hoopa and our Zeraora. We defog those away, and then we can go ahead and Baton Pass out against anything. It lives Urshifu hits very well, obviously, but it kind of gets exploited by things like Nidoqueen and Heatran and Vikavolt, so it's kind of tough, but I feel like it was a necessary evil in this game. And then we have a Life Orb, 3 attacks, Rocks, Lycanroc, Dusk. It just does a lot of damage in this matchup. Close combat, Stealth Psychic Fangs. Stealth Rock, Psychic Fangs hits the Nidoqueen really hard. Close combat hits everything else really hard, which is awesome. And then I guess a Stealth Rock for like guard, but you know, pretty simple stuff here. Alright, let's go ahead and jump right into the game. First off, you're going to see us lead with our Lycanroc Dust, trying to exert some good offensive pressure to him on, but we see a superior lead. Obviously, we don't want to stay in. Now, we are risking a knockoff here going into our G-King, but I don't necessarily think I need my AV. It's just a nice item to have, and I don't want to lose my item on anything else, and I don't really have good switch into this thing, provided it does have knockoff. So I decided G-King is kind of just like the thing we have to go into. But we see a Glare come out, which is really interesting. Heatran's going to come out next, as we do end up Psychicking as a mid-ground. This is completely fine though, because this is one of my checks to the Heatran, so I'm completely fine with staying in and just trying to fire off an Earthquake and do a lot of damage. He does end up Magma Storming and missing, as Magma Storm does typically. We do a clean 51 to this non-leftovers Heatran, which means we have it into a KO range guaranteed. We get parried the next turn, but I'm pretty sure I just clicked Earthquake, and then a Sticky Web's going to come out as we Sludge Bomb, and we're trying to do some good damage to this thing. Psychic is doing a good 46, and I believe we Sludge Bomb or Psychic there. Kind of get a little bit unlucky, get parried, and it's going to kind of be the song and dance for a little bit where we get parried a lot. And we are AV, so we can't really slack off in this thing's face. This next turn, I am going to elect to pivot out, as I do get 2-hit KO'd from there, and I want to make sure that I'm keeping that thing decently healthy for other big threats on the team. As a Roost comes out, Lycanroc Dust comes out on that aggressive play, though. We get a big Life Orb Psychic Fangs off on this Serp. Depending on his bulk, though, I didn't feel super comfortable staying in and clicking a Cell Rock, as well as the fact that I can get into my Togetic and potentially just defog this stuff away. As we do see a knockoff come out, which is a bit unfortunate, but not the end of the world. And then the Heatran's going to come out as we do defog. And I'm just going to Baton Pass out. Without my Eviolite, I'm really not a good check to anything. And I don't want anything taking a raw Magma Storm or Earth Power or whatever it might be, or even just a Flash Cannon. I don't really have a Flash Cannon to resist on this team, so we are going to Baton Pass out, and this is going to be a cool mechanic that I didn't know about until I was, however old I was on May 22nd, 2022, so I guess I was actually a year younger. But I am going to Baton Pass, and you see, it actually passes out the Magma Storm with into my Lycanroc as I Baton Pass out, which is really interesting. I had no idea the mechanic that worked that way, as I am just going to kind of close combat and pick my kill. I could have Rocked up there on the Protect, but there's no reason for me to do so and just lose my Lycanroc, where he's likely to just sack this thing anyways, because we are going to be able to take it out. The Urshifu is going to come in next. It's going to double out into the Nidoqueen, showing me maybe he's not U-turn on this thing, or maybe he just wanted to bluff Scarf, then go into Nidoqueen as I take a close combat or something like that. Who knows? Regardless, though, I am going to go into, go ahead and just sack off my Togetic right here. Again, it's at 47. It doesn't do anything. I can Baton Pass and get momentum if he elects to get up his rocks or something like that. Maybe even like a weird random T-Spike. And I'll be able to go from there. Or, again, just an over-aggressive play. So, down goes Togetic. Crit definitely mattered. I for sure chewed that up in 1v1. I get to go into Hoopa, and my opponent doesn't really have a safe switch into this thing. I'm just going to click Psychic and knock this thing right out, which is great. Out comes Urshifu next. This is kind of just sack time. Lycanroc Dust is going to be our casualty. We see U-turn just raw kill, showing maybe it is banded, and the reason he switched out earlier was to kind of bait a close combat, and he was kind of bluffing Scarf when he went into that, or maybe he even misclicked and meant to go into the Nidoqueen. Who knows? Regardless, we're going to be able to pivot right out. And we're going to get switch initiative as this Serperior comes in. I know that it is in range of a Fire Punch, and I don't want my Zapdos taking a Glare, or my Nido, or my Slowking taking a knockoff or anything like that, or my Hoopa taking any damage. So I decide Zero Aura is just my best play to take this thing on, as it reveals to also be Scarf, get a crit, as we are going to go ahead and just Fire Punch and knock this thing out. So very interesting Scarf Serp in a matchup like this, but it ended up doing some work, obviously, more than I thought it would, as the Vikavolt going to come out. I'm just going to Fire Punch to it, KO this thing in case he wanted to stay in and get up his webs, but he elects to just knock me out. I'm able to go into Hoopa, revenge this thing, and then the guard's going to come out here next. Now, my endgame positioning in which I win this game, right? It's really going to kind of be contingent on me getting in my Zapdos on something like Urshifu to guarantee win. Now, I can win a speed tie into the Gardevoir and win, but I would like to position myself in at a point where I can get off a guaranteed agility and just win the game, right? So, in order to do so, I kind of either have to force out or kill this Guard. And I guess if Guard ends up dying, then I don't have to agility up in general, but Guard is a big nuisance. I don't really switch into it very well, but my Hoopa, like I said, can lift one Hyper Voice from full, so all I need to do against this thing is just attack, as it is going to reveal a substitute. So I'm really glad that I was AV Hoopa in this game, and Hoopa put in a ton of work this game if you think about it, because we are going to force this thing out, force in the Urshifu, get a poison, which is also really, really clutch, and then I'm just going to sack off my Hoopa, because if I switched out, or like he switched out, then that's fine, and if I die, it's perfect, because I know that thing's banded, I know I can go into my Zapdos, and I know I can agility right up, and just win the game from here, as I can Thunderous Kick, and yeah, look, a resisted hit does 56, sounds so strong. I'll just be able to Thunderous Kick this Urshifu, and then go ahead and Brave Bird the Gardevoir, which was guaranteed in range at this point as well, which is very nice. And even then, I had a G-King that could live a hit after regen, provided we didn't get paired. But this is my safest way of winning the game at the end. But yeah, we're gonna be able to beat Witcher week 2. Let's jump on to week 3. Alrighty, week 3 comes along. We're playing my good buddy, my buddy old pal, Diet Tight, aka Jason. He's a really cool team in this league. He's the guy who ended up drafting Mega Scizor behind us, which is what I was thinking about round 1. But he also has Cinderace and Latios and Crocodile and a bunch of cool threats. Solid balance core as well as some really scary offense. So we got our work cut out for us, and I won't lie to you, this is a bit of a chaotic game. So let's go ahead and jump into the team just so you guys can see what we're bringing and why we're bringing it. We have an AV, pretty offensive Slowking. If you looked at his team, he doesn't really switch into our Slowking, provided I click the right coverage room. Move between Flamethrower, Ice Beam, and our Staffs, which is great. Future Sight is really annoying for him to pivot around as well. We have a Heavy Duty Boots, Zero Aura with Plasma Fist, Knockoff, Post Combat, and Volt Switch. A pretty offensive Mega Aggron with Heavy Slam, Fire Punch, Toxic, and Stealth Rock. A Rest Talking Seismitoad with Swift Swim on accident. It was definitely supposed to be Water Absorb, but I messed up. Oh well, that's life. This thing is Rest Talk with Rocky Helmet in order to kind of beat down Cinderace over the course of the game, as well as things like the Crocodile and the Scizor and things like that. So hopefully Seismitoad can do well. Then we have a Choice Scarf Physical Hoopa, which is great coverage all around. Fire Punch, Drain Punch, and Headbutt, and Hyperspace Fury. Then we also have an Agiliting, Throat Chopping Zapdos as our win con in this game. Throat Chop is a great way of hitting the Latios, but as well as hitting the Sylveon and potentially stopping it from using Hyper Voice against us, making us essentially wall it if it is a Hyper Voicing, like a mono Hyper Voicing set, which is good. And then our Stabs do really well in this game, so hopefully we can take home this one. Let's go ahead and pull it up though. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We are going to lead off with our Zapdos into his Latios, trying to catch a potential Croak lead as he is going to pivot out into his Jellicent. I presume to scout us being Scarf, but we're going to switch out second, so he knows we're not Scarf Zapdos the rest of the game. I go into my Slowking on the Latios, and knowing I can take this thing on decently well, even if it throws a Shadow Ball or Will-O-Wisp or whatever, I kind of just stay in to throw up a Future Sight, kind of force him to pivot around a little bit differently, as he actually reveals the Poltergeist, which is a really cool tech. If he ends up getting up Rocks, it's actually a 2-hit KO on my Slowking, so it's something really important to keep in mind. This next turn I am going to pivot out, as I don't have a way of hitting this thing immediately, and go out into my Seismitoad, who I thought was Water Absorb. Unfortunately, it was not. So we're going to go ahead and get burned, take a little bit of damage right here. So I am going to double into my Zero Aura, scouting for an Energy Ball or Giga Drain, as we do end up catching that, which is great. This thing's going to take a big Future Sight, get a little bit of leftover Zac, but down at 62 is always nice for the rest of our team, right? Next turn, I am going to knock off into the Crocodile, get rid of its leftovers, showing it to be Intimidate, which I low-key didn't expect it to be Intimidate because how bad Gyarados railed him, especially if I was like a Scarf variant. So I know if I can call that double a little bit later, I can put myself in a pretty good offensive position. Stealth Rock are going to go up, so it shows that, again, our Slowking just gets to it KO'd. I am just going to go ahead and Thunderous Kick on this thing as it ends up knocking off, pushing my agility a bit, but not the biggest deal in the world. Sylveon's going to come out and I'm going to Thunderous Kick. And now, I kind of get lost in the sauce here, right? Because, realistically, I don't need to stay in and attack this thing with a Throat Chop and try and, like, sauce all over. My Zapdos is so good in this game, if he ends up not being a Hyper Voice set, I'm in a really bad position. I have pivots into this, and in particular, I can go into my Aggron and get up rocks and exert some pressure with my rocks up. But I'm going to kind of really want the tech to work out, so I'm just going to go for a Throat Chop here, which in hindsight just didn't make a ton of sense. I'm going to get 17% off as a Moonblast comes out and basically knocks me out right here. I do get pretty lucky and get my special attack drop, which is going to double my attack, and this thing definitely obviously dies to a Brave Bird from here, right? It just gets nuked. Part of me wanted to go ahead and just agility up, or what do you call it? Agility up or Thunderous Kick on like a Crocodile coming in as a sack, as this thing's at like 19%. But against my better judgment, I do end up just throwing off a Thunderous Kick. It's a bit unfortunate because if I did agility up, I killed one more thing, probably guaranteed. No, the Scizor could have came in and revenged me, so I really actually don't think that matters too much. We're going to go down to our Unrecoiled, though, and I'm going to go into my Hoopa next as the Cinderace comes out. Kind of forced into my Seismitoad here, as this thing can be pretty threatening with a U-turn and just knock out 17 of my Hoopas. We're going to get down very, very low right here. This turn, I am just going to try and throw off a Psychic in case this is like a setup Latios. I can't allow it to set up this turn. I'm never going to get that rest off with Seismitoad. So we're in a pretty tough spot in this game, due to us kind of in the builder getting lost in the sauce and just getting lost in the sauce in general. So we're going to go into our Slowking right here. I am just going to go ahead and throw off a Sludge Bomb right here. No, I throw off a Future Sight, as he does elect to go for a Calm Mind, trying to Mystical Fire me down, but realistically, all I need is a Poison on this thing, and then I can kind of pivot around and deal with it accordingly. So I am going to go into my Hoopa this next turn, as we do see this thing throw off yet another Mystical Fire, but with my big Spadef set, and, you know, just being a bulky mon in general, I'm able to take this, bring this thing down low after the Future Sight and Poison, and then knock it out through Cold War with a Hyperspace Fury. So we're not in the worst position humanly possible. Sylveon's going to come out next. I finally go into my Steel type on the Sylveon. I take just about nothing from that Mystical Fire because I'm still part Rock at this point. And I'm just going to elect to get up my Stealth Rock right here because they're going to be good in chipping down a non-boot Cinderace, as well as putting things like Scizor and Sylveon in range of my Zeraora, which is really my way of winning at this point. So I'm going to go into my Slowking. I'm going to go ahead and just throw off a Future Sight and try and chip this thing down and put some pressure on the rest of his team. If that makes any sense, I'm going to sack it off to a Poltergeist into a Scald. I get a little bit of offensive momentum into my Zeraora, and he can switch on to something else, but Plasma plus Future Sight is going to knock something out. Thankfully, we don't get Scald burned here, and that Jellicent is going to go down, leading for Sylveon to come out. And in my head, I'm like, part of me just really wants to get chip on this thing, so something like my Hoopa can always claim a kill when it comes in. But in hindsight, it's probably not a good idea to sack off my one Bullet Punch resist and my thing faster than a, I guess it's not faster than Scarf Cinderace. I have a Hoopa for Scarf Cinderace, or non-Scarf Cinderace too, but probably not a good thing to sack off my one Bullet Punch, like one of my main ways of taking a Bullet Punch, or like from like a bullet punching, super powering Mega Scizor. But I'm gonna elect to go into my Aggron here, and I just get to click a free Heavy Slam, as the Mystical Fire is gonna do a decent chunk, and we're gonna take out the Sylveon. So brought that down to a 3-2 advantage from a pretty tough spot, which is definitely solid. We're gonna go ahead and just sack off our Aggron to the Cinderace, go out into our Hoopa, kind of just hope and pray that it's not a Scarf set. Thankfully, it isn't. We're going to knock it out with a Hyperspace Fury from 59, and then out comes the Scizor. Obviously, can't allow this thing to set up, so I am just going to go ahead and click Hyperspace Fury. Unfortunately, we don't, and the Zeraora is going to come out. If I had Fire Punch or Blaze Kick, maybe this is a little bit more possible, but I don't even think I knocked it out from there. He's just going to take me out with the Bug Bite, and we're going to drop this 1-1-0. So, getting our first loss of the season in Week 3 isn't the biggest deal in the world. It's a pretty close game, and I feel like I really kind of fell short in the builder and in that early game. So in like any kind of potential rematch, I think we could be fine with just a little bit of tweaks. So it's just more so a good learning experience to get this kind of game out of the way early in the season, opposed to later. So unfortunate, but what can you do? We'll move on to Week 4. Alright, our next game we got here against Nunez. This one is going to be a toughie for sure. Oh my goodness, I'm realizing that it took the wrong window capture for this one. Bam. Just like that. So, you can see Nunez's team. It's pretty darn scary. He's got the Garchomp, Kartana, Mega Pidgeot, Mandibuzz, Slowbro, and the Roselia. So, good pivots into 3 really strong breakers and Mega Pidge, Kartana, and Garchomp. A little bit of background knowledge and context going into this. You see, I ended up playing this game on my phone at my little brother's graduation party. He graduated high school that day. Kind of forgot I had the game, so Jason, feeling ever so gracious after he kind of kicked our ass the week prior, was like, I got you. I'll build you a team. So I played this on my phone while eating hors d'oeuvres and shit. So that was definitely a lot of fun. But we go over the team really quick that Jason so graciously built us. I had to track it down and look for it. Like, wait, where's my week 4 game and all this craziness? We have an AV Slowking. It is max Spadef. This is going to be our check to the Mega Pidgeot, presumably. Again, Jason's the one who built this thing. But it's pretty solid offensively. We don't actually touch the Slowbro very well on his team. We are Psychic, Ice Beam, Flamethrower, and Future Sight. Do pretty well against his team overall, though. We can throw off big Future Sights and really kind of punish him and force him to pivot around. Now, I wish I had a Sludge Bomb, obviously, but I understand why we don't have the coverage for it. So, definitely makes sense. Then we have a Rocky Helmet, Fizz Deffing Tangrowth with Giga Drain, Focus Blast, Leech Seed, and Sleep Powder. This is going to be a Garchomp and Kartana pivot. Focus Blast nukes the Kartana, and honestly, Focus Blast is a cool tech for the Pidgeot. Not necessarily tech, but like a cool option in the sense that we don't miss it because of no guard. So if the Pidgeot wants to come hard in, as we're in with our in on the Kartana, we could Focus Blast. We're going to get a clean chunk off on that thing, which is really nice. Then we have an E-Belt, Lycanroc Dust with the Stone Edge, Crunch, Close Combat, and Stealth Rock. No Cell Rock, which is very terrifying, but Crunch definitely makes sense. Close Combat hits a lot of things really hard. And then Stone Edge just for general stab. That's going to be a good offensive rocker in this game. We have an AV Zeraora with Plasma Fist, Close Combat, Knockoff Volt Switch. Pretty standard stuff. Another pivot into the Pidgeot, I suppose. As well as a Pokemon that can kind of break through things like Slowbro, get good momentum with Volt Switch if the Garchomp is a little bit afraid to come hard in. Then we have a Choice Scarf Special Hoopa with Dark Pulse, Psychic, Thunderbolt, and Trick. Trick is going to be a great tool for crippling things like the Mandibuzz, and otherwise, nothing really switches into Dark Pulse plus Psychic. T-Bolt does hit the Mandibuzz very hard as well, which is definitely a really cool option. Then we have a Choice Band Zapdos with just Thunderous Kick, Brave Bird, Close Combat, and U-Turn. Again, outside of the Slowbro, nothing really switches into this Pokemon on this team, and even then, Slowbro takes a clean 40% from a Banded U-Turn, so provided we get that Banded U-Turn off, we get into something like our Hoopa, and then we actually get a pretty free Thunderbolt off, because it'll knock out the Slowbro from there, and it chunks the hell out of Mandibuzz, depending on its set. It can potentially 2-hit KO it, so that's obviously very nice. Let's go ahead and jump on into this one, though. We are going to go ahead and start it off with a Slowbro lead into our Zapdos. This is completely fine. I'm going to go ahead and U-turn, do a clean 38, and kind of see that this thing is Helmet, so you have to be careful about the Brave Birds that we throw around. We're going to go hard Hoop on the Scald, knowing that I don't really fear Burn. I'm going to make a pretty aggressive play here and Trick immediately. It is a bit unfortunate to lose my Scarf so fast, however, I like the ability of being able to switch moves and really being able to punish Roselia, Slowbro, and Mandibuzz whenever I come in, and just click buttons and be really strong offensively, as well as punish, mid-ground pivots into things like Garchomp or, maybe even a Pidgeot or something like that. And hit them hard with an according coverage move or stab option. So I am going to go ahead and trick this Mandibuzz immediately, and then make a really odd pivot into my Tangrowth. Reason being, I really want to punish U-turn, get a little bit of chip off, and being that this thing is Scarf now, it is going to take residual chip every time it wants to U-turn and grab momentum. Roselia is going to come out here, and I see this opportunity to go into my Hoopa and just click a button right here. Mandibuzz is going to come out. I am just going to be aggressive, click a clean Thunderbolt, do a nice 73 on a crit to this thing, which is great. And then fearing it being a little bit of a faster Mandibuzz, I'm going to go hard Tangrowth on this U-turn. You're going to see it's going to go down to the Helmet. So Mandibuzz eliminated immediately is great, because now we just click Psychic the rest of the game if we do position ourselves accordingly. Next up, Pidgeot's going to come out. It is also going to throw off a big U-turn with the Spike Up. It's a bit annoying, but not the end of the world. I'm going to stay in this Garchomp, kind of trying to punish it, going for a Swords Dance, because I don't really deal with that all too well, and I feel comfortable enough taking on the Pidgeot with the rest of my team, with things like AV Zeraora and stuff like that. So I felt comfortable going for an Ice Beam as the Roselia doubled in, presumably expecting, I don't know what it was expecting, actually. Then I'm going to throw off a Future Sight as the Slowbro comes in, pivot out into my Tangrowth as a Teleport comes out, and the Mega Pidgeot's going to come in. I just get to go hard into my Hoopa, as this thing is going to throw off a Hurricane, which does absolutely nothing because of our AV. And then a clean 59 comes out into this Pidgeot, and it's going to allow us to, once again, just throw off that Future Sight, really giving us good offensive positioning and making him switch around our team accordingly. I'm going to go Tangrowth out here on this Slowbro. Again, this is completely fine because we're letting in things like Roselia or whatever it may be, but as long as, even if it gets up the Spike, it's just going to go down to this Future Sight right here, and nothing switches in to that future sight at this point, besides something like Slowbro, which is still going to take a big chunk from it, and it doesn't want to take that into like Abandoned Brave Bird or something like that, because then it is just raw 2-hit KO'd, and I get to pick something else as he pivots out, or gives me the Slowbro. So I'm going to go Slowking as a pivot on this Slowbro right here. He double scalds, which is fine, and then I'm going to make that pivot into Tangrowth, again, trying to be a little bit aggressive and get some big hits off on the opposing team. I do just get a pretty free Giga Drain right here, because Giga Drain into Future Sight hit knocked out this. Did a ton of Kartana plus I check it, and same thing with the Garchomp. So Giga Drain into Future Sight was essentially a KO. We do get a pretty nice crit right here, doing 97, and then the Future Sight's going to hit and knock out the Slowbro. So we're in a really, really commanding position. Gotten a little bit lucky this game, but definitely nothing I'm going to be too upset about. As right here, the Pidgeot is going to throw off a big Hurricane, as I just throw off a nice and strong close combat, knowing that I can damage the Garchomp coming in, being that I don't have Play Rough, and also chunk down a Kartana pivot and kill a Mega Pidgeot from 41. So I felt like it was a pretty free and safe play. I am going to elect to just go for another close combat this next turn. I get a crit there, which is pretty lucky, but I don't want to allow a Swords Dance plus Scale Shot to just clean through my team, because that is my lose condition at this point. So we are going to see an SD, and thankfully we do get that play correct. We're going to be able to throw off another hit, being a knockoff this time, knocking off this thing's leftovers, and we're going to knock out this Garchomp. Out comes Kartana next. I have no reason to not go Tangrowth, as I do take this thing on very, very well. We get our Rocky Helmet knocked off, but that's completely fine, because I can just throw off a big Focus Blast here. Like I said, I check the cart, and I'll knock it out with a Focus Blast, as well as knock out the Pidgeot from here with the Focus Blast as well, and I can't miss on the Pidgeot because of no guard. So that ends up coming up pretty clutch there. Pretty cool mechanic, at least. And then the Smart Strike's going to come out. We're going to hit our Focus Blast, and we're going to walk away with a 6-0 win. So shouts to Jason the Goat. He smashes me week 3, and then week 4 he gives me a God Squad that just 6-0'd Nunez, who's a very good player, by the way. So, and again, we got a little bit lucky there, but I'll take it. You know, I'll take any win I can get, obviously. So that was obviously great. We get back on track. Let's jump into next week. Alright, week 5, we're going up against Beatergate, and you see he has a team very reminiscent of our last season's team, particularly with that Mega Galate Age/Core. He's also got a great pickup for that Core and Hydreigon, which he didn't have, which would have been awesome. A Wig Greninja instead, which is also very good. Then some great Pokemon like Shaman, Mamoswine, Crobat, and obviously some other threats on the bench, but I do think we have a pretty cool squad here to take them on this week. We can go ahead and start off with our first member in our Galarian Slowking. We are a Fizdef variant with Sludge Bomb, Foul Play, Flamethrower, and Slack Off with Max Fizdef and a Colbur Berry. As long as it's not EQ Mega Galade, we should be able to take a +2 hit from it pretty well. And then just knock it out with a Foul Play, which is great. And obviously take any hit from it at neutral very easily. And just be a general nuisance. Sludge Bomb poison his entire team. We still check things like Shaman very well. And Foul Play plus Sludge Bomb is very annoying for him to switch into, as well as Flamethrower as well. So that's pretty solid here. Then we have our Wincon in an Agility 3 attacks Zapdos with Brave Bird, Thunderous Kick, Throat Chop, and Agility. Just a strong break in this game. He really doesn't have good switch-ins to our dual stab combination, so I'm hoping that we can chip everything into range, get an Agility up, stay out of Mamoswine Ice Shard range, and take home a nice dub with it. Then we have a Shuka Berry, Bulk Up 3 attacks Zero Aura for things like the Mamoswine, obviously, but Plasma Fist, Close Combat, Fire Punch, and Bulk Up just hits his entire team very, very hard. Yeah, just does really well. We got to done things like Shaman for it to succeed, but once we do, we can do a lot of damage to his team. Then we have a Choice Scarf Hoopa. Now, depending on how well our prediction game is really feeling, kind of depends on how well this set does between Hyperspace Fury, Drain Punch, Gong Shot, and Zen Headbutt. We realistically can hit everything on his team very hard. We just have to make sure we click the right button when we do so. Then we have a Fizdef Rocking Toad. Pretty simple Earthquake knockoff, Stealth Rock, and Toxic. Knockoff is to punish things like the Shaman coming in, and then we can Toxic things like the Hydreigon so that they can't get too out of hand against us. We can obviously Toxic the Shaman on switching as well, but it could just not cure it off, so it's more advantageous for us to knock, at least initially. And then if I feel like if I predict a switch otherwise, I can double out opposed to predicting with a Toxic, if that makes sense. And then we have a 4 attacks Lycanroc Dust with Stone Edge, Accel Rock, Close Combat, and Crunch. Just a very strong Pokemon overall, does really well in the matchup. So, yeah, that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into it. We are going to go ahead and start this guy off. We're going to go ahead and lead off with our Seismitoad as he leads off Gallade. I'm going to pivot into my Slowking, scouting for a Leaf Blade, because I don't want to take that hit right now, especially because it's a good pivot into Mamoswine. Like, not Freeze Dry Mamoswine right now, as right here, he is going to Swords Dance up, and I'm like, alright, well, this is fine. I live any +2 hit, provided it's not EQ, which I don't think it will be into my team, and I can just Foul Play and knock this thing out, be in a pretty good spot going forward. But I'm going to show you how quickly a game can snowball from what seems like a pretty even matchup and, you know, pretty even game to just out of nowhere in one turn. Ready? just like that. Now, obviously, I don't immediately lose to this Pokemon unless he's Drain Punch. If he is Drain Punch, I do actually immediately lose to this Pokemon. But what this is essentially going to force me to do is, one, going to be hoping that he's not Drain Punch. Two, it's going to be sacking off my Hoopa in order to get damage to put this thing in range of everything else on my team. I don't have anything like an Okomeg Glade really on my entire roster besides Zapdos. And obviously, I'm not faster because I'm not a Scarf set this week. So I have to go into my Scarf Hoopa and, one, hope I get a flinch, or two, hope that he's not Drain Punch so I can Zen Headbutt him and put him in range of something like Zeraora. That's really, really bad, obviously, because I'm going down 4-6, or I guess 4-5, immediately and losing two incredibly important members of my team. My Hoopa is a great revenge killer in this matchup and can put on a lot of offensive pressure and allow me to play really offensively and aggressively in certain scenarios. And obviously, losing my Slowking is less than ideal. It's a great check to the Shaman, which you're going to see is a genuine problem here in a little bit. So I am going to go ahead and click Zen Headbutt. Unfortunately, I don't get the flinch, but at least he's not Drain Punch, because then the game was just immediately over. We're going to go down here, and I'm going to be able to go into my Zeraora, and at least revenge this thing or threaten it out as the Shaman comes in. Maybe I could have Fire Punched there, but I didn't really want to risk his bulk or whatever it might be, and put myself in a bad spot. This next turn, I'm going to pivot into my Gyarados on this thing substituting, which is honestly fine. I'll go ahead and Thunderous Kick this first turn, as we are going to see a Leech Seed miss from the Shaman into my Zapdos. I'm going to pull a double here into my Seismitoad, expecting the Aegis Slash in order to get at my rocks, try play a little bit aggressively, get myself back in this game, as we are down 6-4. And this next turn, I'm just going to go ahead and Toxic this Hydreigon as it comes in and throw us off a Tailwind, which is definitely really, really interesting, this like Tailwind offense idea, which I don't know if you guys know, I'm not the biggest fan of Tailwind in general in singles. I think it's, again, he's clicked it and only through the first turn. Now he only has 3 turns left. So I'm not the biggest fan of its like practical application singles, in the sense that like you don't get that much value out of clicking the move, and you're kind of wasting an entire move to set up something that lasts you really 3 turns at most. So next turn I'm just gonna knock off, get rid of this thing's Life Orb, which is I guess nice, and then take a big Dark Pulse down to 2%. Thankfully we do live it. Now that flinch doesn't really matter in the sense that we were just going to die the next turn, and knock off was going to do 2% at most, and you know, we'd be able to threaten this thing out afterwards. And honestly, it's better that we go down right here, because this is going to allow us to get a switch in as the Tailwind expires, which is obviously nice. So Dark Pulse is going to come out, it's going to knock out our Hydreigon, and now this thing is, what, in range of Toxic. I'm going to just go ahead and Accel Rock, which is completely fine. We're going to knock that thing out, put ourselves in a good position going forward. Next up, Aegis Slash is going to come out, and I just need to attack this thing. If I can get Chip on this, there's a potential for my Agility Zapdos to kind of put in some work and win the game. So I'm going to Crunch, I'm going to pop its Colbur, which is also incredibly valuable, and then I am going to see this thing autotomize, and then throw off a big Iron Head, I believe, or Close Combat, and knock out our Lycanroc, taking us down and putting us in a pretty tough spot. Thankfully, we can go on to Zapdos. Crobat's going to come out right here as I do Agility up, knowing that I outsped that thing the turn afterwards, and then I could just knock it out with Throat Chop. Unfortunately, Tailwind's going to come out here again, so again, this is like double Tailwind offense, and I'm kind of forced into a position where I need to start bulking up to try and stall the Tailwind turns out, because if he's like playing optimally and he just U-turns out, I'm in a pretty tough spot in this Tailwind against something like a Mamoswine. So I'm going to continuously bulk up until there is 1 turn of Tailwind remaining. So we're going to see 1 more Super Fang take me down low, but I am able to take out this Crobat with the Plasma Fist pretty easy at +2. And then we're going to have the Mamoswine come in, but this is kind of checkmate, as we do go down to that. That crit really didn't matter, unless he was like no attack Mamoswine, and then we're going to get 2-hit KO'd right here. I had to go for an Agility because I just got revenge the next turn anyways. I suppose I could have played for Diff and just Thunderous Kicked, but I felt more comfortable playing on his Choke. But yeah, pretty unlucky game for your hero. The turn 1 crit just put us so far in the back foot, and losing something like Hoopa, as well as our Slowking, which we could have just regened off and taken his Glade from him, basically for free, would have been phenomenal for us. But that's Pokemon. Sometimes you get unlucky. We're still 3-2 or whatever it is, so we're in a good position going forward. It's just frustrating to lose like that, and, you know, obviously we want to win. So we just need a couple more wins and we can clutch playoffs. I'll be right back with our Week 6 game. Alright, Week 6 rolls along. We're playing Shattered Simisear here, which I believe they go by Chris on Discord. If not, I'm sorry. I'm terrible with names, which I probably shouldn't be at this point, but I'm pretty bad with names. And a pretty scary matchup. We have a Landorus Eye with Sheer Force and a Megalop, which is a really scary and potent offensive core against a team like ours. In particular, that Landorus Incarnate is a demon into us. So we have to be very, very careful about that guy. Then we have an annoying, bulky, balanced core of things like Umbreon, Weezing, Scizor, and the Chestnut. But we got, again, a pretty fun team built around Curse, Mega Aggron, which we'll show off. We have an AV Slowking. We are pretty much max Spadef, so we can take hits from things like the Landers if we need to. Again, we throw off big future sights, and we have great coverage overall into this team between Sludge Bomb, Flamethrower, and Ice Beam. So we can hit some things pretty hard and be generally annoying. Fizz Defing Tangrowth with actually mono knockoff. We are Sleep Powder, knockoff, Leech Seed, and Sunstorm. I believe Amel actually built us this team, so shout out to Amel, the GOAT. I was going through a little bit of a dry spell with Pokemon at this time, and I didn't really want to build my team, so big shout outs to Amel and Jason in the last 2 weeks in particular. But this looks like an Amel set because it doesn't have any stab, which is definitely scary, but we cripple his whole team. We're generally annoying. And we spread passive damage through other things. Then we have a Lumberry Zeraora with Plasma Fist, Knockoff, Toxic, and Fire Punch. Just does good damage overall to his team, and we can knock things off like the Landorus as they come in to punish them, get rid of their life orb, making them much, much less scary. Then we have a Choice Band Zapdos, just rips through this team. Look at its flying resist. It doesn't exist because I believe the steel type is Scizor. So we can kind of just click Brave Bird the whole game and do a lot of damage with Facade in case we get a random burn on us, which should be annoying, but not the end of the world. Then we have a Fizz Def Toad with Stealth Rock, Scald, Earthquake, and Toxic. It's here to get up rocks, Scald Burns, and things, and again, just be a general nuisance to the opposing team. And yeah, that's about it. And then we have our Curse Mega Aggron. If we can lure in the Landorus with our Slowking, knock it out with an Ice Beam, this Aggron can go absolutely buck wild. Look at his team other than the Landorus once I get a Curse up. Alright, you done looking? Cool. That's basically how I envision it going, right? Alright, let's go ahead and jump on into this one. We are going to lead off with our Zapdos into the no flying resist team in the Chestnut, which is great because I think I knocked this thing out. Unfortunately, it's like a Sash Suicide lead Chestnut, which is pretty demon, very pre-COVID Chestnut-like, as I am able to 2-hit KO it, but at the cost of a spike being up on my field, which is a bit annoying. Next up, the Weezing is going to come out. I'm going to go hard in my Seismitoad. I'm okay with getting burned in this game because I'm going to click Scald and Toxic the entirety of it anyways, so I don't mind being burned, and I chew up any hit I want to go for, and I get up my Rocks, which will chip things down on the switch in. Next up, Scizor is going to come out, and I'm not really fearing any kind of setup variant. I can go ahead and Scald this thing, bait for a burn, and if it's a setup variant, we can go into things like our Mega Aggron and do a lot of work, or our Fire Punch Zera, or things like that. So, Umbreon's going to come in. I take this as an opportunity to Toxic, and this is a Pokemon I thought would just go down after a little bit of point, but Seismitoad is sticking around. You're going to see it is a Wish Umbreon with Foul Play, but it's not doing that much, only 21%, so even though this Umbreon is wishing up consistently, it's also getting consistently chipped down and peppered by Scalds and Toxic turns and things like that. Especially when it takes that extra turn to Wish every single time, it's going to get chipped down over time, which is, again, very, very nice for us. We're going to have a Protect come out here. That's fine. I Toxic on some Fluctuate in case he wants to pivot into, like, a Landorus or, like, a Lopunny for some reason. But even then, I actually don't need to. I could just spam Scald, and I probably should have, which I do right here, yeah. We're going to do a lot of damage to the Scizor. Clean 28, which is always, always nice. And we're going to see a U-turn, bring us down very, very low. Then go back out into the Umbreon as we do just off a Scald. Again, we're slowly just chipping down and wearing down this team. We have Chestnut gone, Rocks up, Scizor at 60, and the Umbreon at 20 now. Actually 8, but before this Wish. So it'll be below 50%, which is very, very nice. Obviously, we're going to bring it back up to 57, then down to 39, and this Pokemon is really, really passive and really not that great into us. So he is going to go ahead and throw off a Baton Pass here and go into Scizor, as I do just throw off a big Curse, and this is essentially a free KO here, as I am just going to throw off a Heavy Slam, and a plus 1 we're doing 28, and he knows that this is set up fodder. I believe I should just Heavy Slam again, knowing it's going to U-turn out, as we see Umbreon, yep, so we just Heavy Slam again. Now, I know that's a bit odd, being that I just did 28, but if he stays in, I force a Roost, and it can't really do anything to me anyways, and if it switches like it should, I chunk something down. Next, Weezing's going to come out, but this is completely fine. It gets rid of its our neutralizing gas and Will-O-Wisp us, which is, again, annoying, but not the end of the world. We get a clean 57 off on this thing, which is great for things like Gyarados, just to come in and click Brave Bird. And then a Pain Split's going to come out, and I'm going to just go ahead and rest up because I beat this thing 1v1 100% of the time, as a Taunt is going to come out here. So that's a bit annoying, obviously, making it to where we can't Sleep Talk. We have to burn this last turn of Sleep if we're going to stay in. Landorus is going to come out on a double, as I believe I go Slowking because it covered this Weezing staying in, Scizor, or Lop. It just really covered everything, minus this Landorus. But even then, if we can kind of lure this thing in, we could potentially be in an okay position. Calm Mind's going to come out here into my Gyarados, and we're just going to get Sludge Waved and dropped, which is really, really bad. You see me say GG in the chat early, as I usually do, but there isn't out here. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. I go ahead and knock off this thing's Yashi Berry, which is great, because this also tells me, 1, Yashi's gone, 2, it's not Life Orb, which means that at +1, my Slowking can indeed live a hit. So while we do drop down to this Earth Power, the game isn't over yet, because like I said, if I can kill you with this Landorus, my Mega Aggron goes buck wild. So we're just going to Ice Beam, we're going to knock out said Landorus, and then Lop's going to come out. I believe I pivot on my Tangrowth, as my Slowking actually has some great use still, as we're going to see a triple Axle come out, and that does as much as any Giga Drain really ever could. Really chipping down this thing. Unfortunately, it only gets 1 hit, actually, so I'm wrong. It doesn't chip it down a ton. But U-Turn's going to come out. Scizzor's going to come out. I believe I just Sleep Powder into Leech Seed here to try and get some passive recovery on not only my Tangrowth, but as well as my Aggron. And from here, if I get off this free curse on this Sleep Talk turn, I'm in a really good position, as a Roost is going to come out. This is just going to give me an extra turn, and I do thankfully get the curse, putting myself in a phenomenal position, as I can just go ahead and curse again. There's nothing that can really punish me in this regards, as Weezing is going to come out next. It is going to take a good 13, and then, oh no, I just Heavy Slam and knock out the Weezing. Cool. So now I guess I win. I guess I don't really need another curse in any sense, because you're going to see this Lop come in. It's going to click the super effective close combat for a clean 37, and then just drop to a Heavy Slam. And this is going to put me in a good position to win the game against the Scizor. I presume it's not SD, and if it is, it's either not Bullet Punch, which doesn't make any sense, or not, what do you call it? The superpower that would need to hit me. So I am just going to kind of rest in this thing's face and set up a little bit. As you're going to see, my opponent kind of just concedes at this point. They kind of type dots, but it was just in my best interest to, you know, rest and curse up and things like that. So we're going to knock out the Scizor. We're going to jump back on the winning side of things, and we'll be right back with Week 7. Alrighty, guys. Week 7 rolls along, and we're going up against Raven. And if we win this game, we actually secure playoffs. I believe it'll put us at 5-2 opposed to the 4-2 that we're at now, which would be obviously amazing. But we have a pretty tough matchup against a really, really annoying team here. You can see the Mew, Gligar, Tangela, Spectrier, Terrakion, and the Celesteela. Mew can do a million different things versus me. I think Calm Mind is particularly scary. Just like Psychic plus Bug Buzz can be really annoying for my team to potentially deal with. Gligar and Tangela is a really annoying Eviolite budget defensive core that is pretty tough for me to break, in all honesty. Spectrier, we have a good response on Audino, but can be very annoying. We have to play around it very particularly, and it can let in that Terrakion, which with the Choice Band can kind of two-hit KO our entire team. So we have to be very careful about that. And Sally, whether it be offensive or defensive, is always a nuisance. There's just a lot of annoying Pokemon on this team. So we'll go ahead and show off the squad that we got here. I apologize if you can hear my family being loud in the background. You can tell by me going like in between, making sure nobody's dying. It's just them being loud. We have a knockoff Encore, Heal Bell, Wish, Audino, and it's here to mainly check the Spectre, but as well as support the rest of our team with Wish, Encore, and Heal Bell. Really passing around, keeping the rest of our squad healthy. We have a Choice Scarfing Trick Hoopa with Stabs plus Ice Punch. Does really well in this game. If you look at Stabs plus Ice Punch, it hits everything very, very hard. And Trick is great to cripple that Eviolite Wall core very, very hard. And then we have a Heavy Duty Boots, bulk up 3 attacks, 0 aura. If we can eliminate and knock off and really weaken down that Gligar, this thing does phenomenally outside of that, so that'd be awesome. Scarf Gyarados, pretty simple stuff here. Great Revenge Killer to non-Scarf Terrakion, which I'm not as worried about Scarf in all honesty, because I have a Tangrowth. I'm really worried about Band in particular, so I'd love a way to revenge that thing, which we do have right here. Awesome, obviously. Then we have our Rocky Helmet Tangrowth. Again, it's going to be our main Terrakion pivot. It's going to knock things off, Sleep Powder, and kind of get out of there and support the rest of the team accordingly. Then we have a pretty fun Swift Swim Life Orb Seismic Toad. I believe I was actually supposed to be modest on this set, but I forgot to put a nature on it, and I didn't change it because I knew I'd eventually be recording a video for this. So there you go, Owen. Good stuff. Nice and serious Seismic Toad, because we're seriously going to win with it. He really, really struggles switching into Stabs plus Sludge Wave in the rain, so hopefully we can do well, especially with knockoff support, knocking off that Tangle's item. And yeah, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. So I am going to lead off with my Hoopa and a Gligar, and this is great. And now you might be thinking this thing can just U-turn out. It can. However, it's going to take a massive massive chunk from Ice Punch, which is obviously great for me. Chipping this thing down for my Zeraora, putting in range of a +1 hit, puts me in a phenomenal position for the rest of this game, which I'll definitely take. And I guarantee live an U-turn unless it's like adamant, you know, max attack Gligar, which I definitely don't expect. And if that's the case, it might even just die to Ice Punch. So either way, I'm in a pretty solid position when it comes to that. And I can, you know, just throw off big hits the rest of the game and, you know, really take advantage of this Gligar being nice and chipped and weakened and potentially gone. So I am just going to Ice Punch, do a clean 71, U-turn, and get crit. Now, this is really bad. Obviously, not only do I not get to keep my Hoopa, I lose a great Revenge Killer into Spectre, Terrakion, Mew. I lose my Dark type against Mew, which is really scary, potentially depending on what the set is. And I lose a good trick option to trick something like the Tangela once he knows that I'm physical. And yeah, just an overall really, really tough turn for your hero. Losing Hoopa immediately puts me in a really bad position off rip. So yeah, we're just going to have to deal with it accordingly. We're going to have Mew come out here as I am going to go into my Zeraora. Really hoping this thing isn't Wisp because I don't really have a better play otherwise. We do see that this thing is Colbur, making me think maybe it's like Bug Buzz as this other move or something like that. But it's not Calm Mind as you're going to see a Spike come out here as I bulk up. This is fine though, as I can just 2-hit KO this thing with Knockoff. And Psychic isn't going to be able to OHKO me from the range I'm at. Obviously doing a clean 35, but we'll be able to knock off this Tangela coming in. And thankfully, we get a pretty low roll here on the Giga Drain, allowing us to live on 2% and knock out this Tangela with a big, big Fire Punch. Down it goes, which puts us in a good spot. Terrakion comes out next, and expecting it to be a Choice Scarf variant, I'm going to go out into my Tangrowth. No reason you go into this unless you're Choice Scarf or Choice Band Quick Attack, which I'll definitely take. We're going to see Sacred Sword come out, a little bit of Rocky Helmet Chip as a Gligar stat comes out on my Sleep Powder. I expected something like Celesteela, but obviously not getting put to sleep is a little bit nicer for his team, so he's going to go to Mew in order to get a Soft Boiled off, but honestly this is fine because I'm going to Sleep Powder and use this as my opportunity to get into my Seismitoad and exert some offensive pressure because as you see, nothing wants to take these hits. Now, if I was modest, I'm actually in a really good spot here. As you're going to see, I am going to bring this thing down super, super low as it ends up getting up a spike as it wakes up. But honestly, this is fine. I'll lose a little bit more HP. You're going to see not remembering to put my Nature on kind of bites me here. As who knows, maybe we got low roll there. Maybe we get a higher roll with Modest and we just knock that thing out. And then are able to get off a big Surf on Selly, putting us in a phenomenal position to win this game. Unfortunately, it doesn't go that way. I still think I'm in a really good position, though, because I just come in with Zeraora. I get what I presume to be the freest knockoff of all time. I can knock off the Trakion, yeah, give it an attack boost, but also potentially get rid of a Choice Scarf or a Choice Band on it, which is great for me. Or I knock off the Spectre, knock it out, or I knock off the Selly and then just Plasma Fist it afterwards, really opening up a Brave Bird endgame for my Gyapdos. So all of these things are really, really solid for me, obviously. So I am just going to elect to go ahead and throw off that knockoff. Unfortunately, you're going to see, though, that this Celesteela is Rocky Helmet, and this puts me in a really bad position. I went from really good to really bad. I go into my Tangrowth here out of pure tilt. I don't know why I just threw it away immediately, but down we go. Unfortunately, to this Air Slash, you're going to see the trademarked OGalbina early GG right here, thinking I just lost the game. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on hyper fast because this is a long time. And essentially what I have to do is I have to find a way to position myself in a way that I can chip down and get rid of the Celesteela in order to open up an endgame where I can click Brave Bird into the Spectre, which is going to be really hard. It's going to kind of consist of a lot of knocking off, wishing, encoring, heal belling, and pivoting around a ton and calling aggressive doubles by my opponent right here. So we're going to go ahead and pivot around here a lot, and it's really just going to be a lot of the same. I'm not going to make you guys sit through and explain every single turn and every single idea. There are a couple turns where I double out, where, you know, I overplay expecting a double and things like that. There's one really key turn in which I'm actually, you know, just calling the double. So I'm actually going to start skipping turns a little bit right here. So we can wish, we can pass out. Thank God this isn't CC, and it's like Sacred Sword apparently, which is great. But yeah, again, we're going to go ahead and just keep on keeping on and get to a point where we have the Celesteela very, very low. And I've called the double a couple times out into the Spectre where I've Thunderous Kicked or close combated the Celesteela and expecting them to go into the Spectre, knowing that I'm Scarf. I've made the double onto Audino. It's happened a very fair few amount of times, like right here. I just saw it happen. Bam, Thunderous Kick, it lead seeds, and then we pivot right out into our, what do you call it? as we're going to see another pivot here, and I'm going to be able to knock it out here, expecting them to call my double leech seed, maybe toxic into my Audino, trying to burn another heal bell. I'm running low on encore, so I feel like I need to make that aggressive play. I made it, and I was able to put myself in a good position going forward as a Will-O-Wisp comes off here. And again, I'm going to be in an okay spot, make a big double, Brave Bird on the Spectrier, and then sack off my Audino just to get into Gyarados and knock this thing out with close combat. And take home a game I didn't think I would win on turn 18, but by turn 67, we were able to sneak it away and grab a dub and clinch ourselves for playoffs. So it was very intense to play. In hindsight, watching it back is pretty not very fun and interesting, but I'm still pretty proud of, despite the early game adversity and me not being a nature on my Seismitoad and things like that, being able to put in some work and, put myself in a position to win with the Zapdos was still pretty cool. We had to make some aggressive reads throughout that as well. If you want to slow it down, meticulously, dissect me turn by turn, but and rip into me. Maybe I made a shitty play. Who knows? But yeah, that's gonna be week 7. We can move on to week 8 next. Alrighty, our last game of the season is going to be up against Luffy, who's a very solid player. This game doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but for seeding, it obviously does. And I'd like to end the season off on a win, because I like to win and I don't like to lose very much. So you see a pretty scary team here in the Mienshao, which is really, really tough for my team to switch into over the course of the game, especially considering that my fighting resistance team is something like Slowking, so it can be really, really annoying over the course of time. Obviously, we take fighting moves well, but we don't take the U-turns, the knockoffs as nicely. Deoxys Speed, which I'm actually not super worried about, being that we have Hoopa, we'll talk about it. Steelix, which is always annoying, especially for a Zeraora team. Mega Mawile, which I'm not too worried about either, because I have Mega Aggron, one of the few, reliable checks. We gotta be careful about straight Brick Breaks and especially Focus Punches, but we can definitely take it on. Our G-King's brother and G-Bro, which is, again, annoying, and the Galarian Moltres, which can put in a lot of work with a double dance set against our team, in my opinion. So, gonna have to be careful. Let's go ahead and jump into the squad, though. We have a pretty offensive, decently fast Slowking here with Sludge Bomb, Ice Beam, Future Sight, and Flamethrower. The speed is just to catch things like the Steelix off guard. We just do a lot of damage, Sludge Bomb, Future Sight, and spread off, a bunch of passive damage on the opposing team. Then we have an Assault Vest Hoopa with Hyper Speed, Fury, Fire Punch, Ice Punch, and Zen Headbutt. Again, just does very well at checking things like the Deoxys and throwing off big hits into the opposing side. Fire Punch is great for things like Mawile and Steelix. Obviously, we gotta be pretty careful about Sucker Punches coming our way, but as long as they don't, we're not in the worst spot in the world. Next up, we have a Mega Aggron with a fair bit amount of defense with Heavy Slam, Body Pressure, Rest, and Sleep Talk. Just very annoying in this game overall. We can Rest Talk all over a lot of different things and do a ton of damage to them, whether that be the Slowking, or not Slowking, the Glowbro, a non-setup, Moltres, Mega Mawile, things like that. Body Press is going to hit things like Steelix very hard, as well as the Mawile, and, really a bunch of things. Heavy Slam plus Body Pressure is almost unresisted on this team. Then we have a mostly special Zeraora with Heavy Duty Boots, Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, Aura Sphere, and Knockoff. Knockoff into Aura Sphere does a ton to Steelix, so if we can catch that thing with an Aura Sphere after a knockoff, say we predicted to come in once, we knock off, get out of there, and then next time we predicted with an Aura Sphere, we 2 a KO pretty easy, which is obviously really, really nice. And it just does really well into the rest of the team. We Volt Switch around, we Thunderbolt some things for a lot of damage, and we're, again, just an overall general nuisance. We got a Choice Scarf Zapdos as well with Brave Bird, Thunder's Kick, U-Turn, and Close Combat. Just a strong, solid physical mon. Close Combat and Brave Bird are really annoying for my opponent to switch into, depending on which one it is. So, obviously, we can kind of, play that to our advantage. And then we have an Assault Vest offensive Seismitoad as like a pivot into things like the Moltres. Just throw off big kits for Liquidation, Earthquake, Power Whip, and Ice Punch. It also pivots into Glowbro very well and just throws off big, strong attacks throughout the game, which is obviously really nice. Alrighty, let's go ahead and jump into it, but this time I'm going to remember to change the screens. I've done that a couple times while recording, where I just forget to change screens. I'm going to lead off with Zera, tried and true, into the Moltres. This is perfect, because this gives me an incredibly freeing knockoff into this very obvious Steelix. We're only going to do 10%, but we get rid of its leftovers, showing it wasn't choppable as well, which is good to know, but getting rid of its leftovers is incredibly clutch. I'm going to make the offensive switch into Seismitoad as we Liquidation for a clean 60% as a U-turn comes out, doing 44, showing to be Giga Banded, which is really annoying. Liquidation once again comes off into this Galarian Moltres as we just throw off a big Ice Punch. This thing's going to be very bulky and going to be able to knock us out on the next turn due to the, Berserk boost. But this is fine. We can just go into our Zeraora, click Aura Sphere, knock this thing out from this range. Even max HP did die and put myself in a good position. Next turn, the Mega Mawile is going to come out, and some shenanigery is afoot. Now, I just volt switched out because I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to stand. I get into, you know, whatever pivot I have. And we're going to see a focus punch is actually going to come out. And this is great because I might not have gone into my aggron expecting a potential brick break, because that would have put me in a pretty terrible spot. It would have brought me down to, it would have just killed me actually, because rocks are up. So being able to volt switch out here, break this thing's focus, and get a free mega off with aggron is amazing for me. So I'm going to volt switch, and because we're modest, we do a good 44%, which is amazing. Aggron's going to come out, and I'm just going to be able to throw off a big body slam here, or a body press here, as the mobile is going to sub, no, heavy slam, oops. And then this next turn, we can just go ahead and throw off a body press. It's a weak knockoff, does a clean 16% to us, which is great. Mancho's going to come out next. It is going to knock us out with a high jump kick. I don't know if that crit mattered. We do see that this thing is reckless, which is good to know. But I believe it is guaranteed choice fan based on how much it did to our Seismitoad earlier. So this is all just good information to know at this point. But definitely pretty unfortunate to lose our aggron like that. But it checked the main thing it was here for in the Mega Mawile. And basically everything on my team got 2 AK. I'm pretty sure Slowking gets 2 AK by that after rocks. They're very close. And I definitely don't want to take a U-turn or a knock. So next up, I'm just going to go Zera. I'm going to Aura Sphere on a very aggressive play, expecting the, what do you call it, Steelix to come in. It doesn't. We're going to have Slowking come in, so I just go ahead and Volt Switch out into my Slowking as an Earthquake comes out, which is a pretty good, nice mid-ground bring. It hits the Zera and it hits the Slowking very hard. Now, I'm going to make that pivot into Gyapdos and just, I believe, U-turn out on a hard Steelix, which is also great. We're going to go into Zera Aura, double into Gyapdos back again, trying to bait that Earthquake as we do such. And yeah, we'll just throw off a big Thunderous Kick, do a clean 38, bring this thing down to -1 defense, really chipping it down, hopefully in the range of our Zera Aura. The next turn, I'm not going to mess around, I'm just going to click it again in case he wants to stay in, because I actually don't switch into Slowking, or Steelix very well, as the G-King is going, or the G-Bro is going to come in. Then we're going to see a double into Steelix. At this point, I don't really need my G-King, it doesn't check anything in particular, it kind of gets nuked by the Mienshao still. Dio can beat it 1v1 if it's like Recover, and the G-King is shown to have Earthquake, which we don't have. So I'm just gonna like bait on the fact that I'm faster, and he didn't go super fast into his Steelix. He had to be considerably fast on his Steelix to outspeed us, because we're pretty darn fast G-King. Thankfully, we outspeed. We knock this thing out with a Flamethrower. Mienshau's gonna come out next in order to get switch initiative. I'm just gonna sack off my G-King. Down it goes, but then we can just go out into Zera Aura and click Thunderbolt. Put ourselves in a good position here. Galarian Slowbro is going to come out next. I believe I knock off, get rid of its Colbur Berry, which is awesome for our Hoopa, which does really well the rest of this game. I can kind of just stay in with my Zera and sack it off in order to put myself in a good position. Now, in hindsight, I should have just Volted there, because Volt would have killed this thing and given me a free switch into Hoopa for better differential. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's really not that big of a deal. The Dio speed's going to come out. We're going to go down to a Psychic, which is fine. And there's absolutely nothing this thing can do to take on our Hoopa. It gets no type of bug coverage, and no type of coverage for us in general. So, especially with an Assault Vest, we're just going to be able to nuke this thing with Hyperspace Fury, knock it out, and grab a nice 2-0 victory to end the season. Could have been 3-0, but whatever. I'll take any kind of win we can get. And then we just got to move on to round 1 of playoffs, who I believe is against Diet Tight. So, I'll be right back with that one. Round 1, we got the rematch that I've been alluding to against Jason, who kind of smacked us up a little bit last time with some subpar prep and play on our end. So I'm really excited to get a potential rematch. You see his team, it's actually the exact same 60 ball last time. I'm pretty sure he just copy-pasted his team over, which is fair. I've done that plenty of times in my draft career. This team we have is pretty similar. We did tweak a few things. You can see we're now a Choice Scarfed Zapdos. I believe we're creeping Adam and Crocodile here. We're not too fancy with the EVs anymore. We're just a Scarf set. We can really punch a hole in his team with our dual stab combination. I think I got a little cute the last time. I don't need like weird throat chop tech. I can just click Brave Bird the whole game, because there's just no flying resist. So that's obviously really nice for me. We are still the same exact Toad set. This time we are Water Absorb though, so we remembered to change our ability to the correct one. We're going to pivot in on things like the Slowking, the Jellicent, which is very nice, and as well as chip down the Cinderace and Scizor as they try and U-turn around our team, which is great. Spread Skull Burns and Toxic Poisons. Then we have just, again, same exact Zera set as the last time. We are just Boots for attacks with Volt Switch to grab good momentum, which is great. We can knock off the Crook and put ourselves in a good position later. And same exact Aggron set, pretty offensive, Heavy Slam, Fire Punch, Toxic, and Stealth Rock. It's here to get up rocks and check the Scizor as well as the Sylveon. Scarf Hoopa, same as last time, and I believe AV Slowking, same as last time. So, all pretty darn simple stuff. Now, let's go ahead and jump on into it. We are going to go ahead and lead off with our Zapdos once again into a Cinderace lead. This is fine with me. I believe I do just click U-turn. I don't expect him to be Scar Cinderace in a matchup like this, and if he is, oh well, we live a hit and we get really good information. So I'm going to get a free switch into our Zera, as I believe I throw off a big knockoff into the Crocodile. Things going just as well as they did last time, putting us in a good position early. Let's see if we keep up that momentum though. I go hard Gyarados, expecting the rocks up. And then I'm going to U-turn out on the Jellicent coming in, into my Zeraora. Then I'm going to pull the trigger and make the double I should have made last game. I'm going to go into my Zapdos on the Crocodile. And again, he's Intim, not Moxie. So we're going to be able to get a big Defiant boost. And this is basically Choice Scarf, Choice Band, Zapdos. And nothing's going to take 2 Brave Birds. And we're going to 2-KO something here. Unless we get Curse Body, which is pretty unfortunate. We're going to get chipped down here. And because of the Curse Body, we can't even pick this KO. We're going to have to pivot right out into like our Hoopa on a recover or something like that. And we're going to throw off a Hyperspace Fury. Nothing too crazy. We're not going to overpredict at this point in the game, especially being that we just made an aggressive play. Jason can make an aggressive play to get back into it, like expecting our Drain Punch or Ice Punch and just staying in. Who knows? But we're going to go Seismic Toad here because I don't want my Zapdos knocked off, and I'm getting pretty low. So after a Toxic comes out and we get a knockoff on our Rocky Helmet, I'm going to Toxic expecting something like the Jellicent coming in. Unfortunately, it doesn't. I'll just be able to rest up this next turn and get back up and nice and healthy. Unfortunate thing is the Cinderace and the Sizzle are no longer going to be chipped down by a Rocky Helmet, but these are things that we can get past if we play around it correctly. So we're going to pivot into Slowking on an Energy Ball, and again, expecting a Ghost move, whether it be Shadow Ball or Poltergeist like last time. I'm going to go into my Zeraora, as this does absolutely nothing. Only 32, which is fine when we have our boots intact as well. And then Crook is going to come out this next turn. I believe I tried to Volt Switch expecting maybe like a mid-ground Lottie or Sylveon pivot. Unfortunately, we didn't get it. I do knock that thing out with Close Combat from there, so he makes a good pivot into his Latios in order to threaten me out the following turn, which is obviously very, very annoying. And I go hard into my Glowking to try and check this thing. Immediately throw off a Sludge Bomb to try and poison it. Unfortunately, we don't get it. We still do a decent chunk with 29, and then knowing that I probably forced a recovery here, I'm going to get into my Hoopa, but he actually elects to just go for a Psychic, which is even better for me. So I can't really play around this too much. I guess I could have Ice Punched to mid-ground, but I really like Hyperspace Fury. It gives me a little bit of information on the Sylveon as well, which is fine. I'm expecting a Wish. I'm going to go into my Aggron, but we just get a Moonblast out, which is fine, because again, the Sylveon stays a little bit more chipped than it normally would have, so this is all good for me. I'm going to go ahead and go into Aggron, set up rocks, because they'll be there the entire game unless it's Defog Scizor. And if it's Defog Scizor, it's giving away the rocks on my side, which is also good. The next turn, I just off a Fire Punch on the Cinderace, expecting, what do you call it? The Scizor to be the pivot in potentially. Unfortunately, we are going to burn the Jellicent, which means no more Toxic. We also get Disabled, which is really unfortunate. I'm going to go hard into my Glowking on a Scald, take 13, no burn, which is obviously really nice, and then we're going to see that Poltergeist from last game, that clean tech from Jason, except it only does 27 because he's burned, which is great. So I guess the burn was a blessing in disguise, at least it's keeping it somewhat low. On a Future Sight and then pivot onto Hoopa, Jason makes a good play of double Scalding and not falling for like Poltergeist bait or anything like that. And we are going to get burned, which is really, really unfortunate, but we're going to be able to get off some decent damage on this Crook in conjunction with Rocks and Toxic Chip and no more leftovers, which was a good pivot in hindsight too, considering that Future Sight was going to come out that turn. So good play by Jay. I'm going to go right out into Sizer Toad on a Toxic, which is all completely fine with me. And then Jellicent's going to come out, as I believe we double, into our Hoopa to get some kind of value out of it, expecting Lottie or Jelly to come in. Either one honestly works. And then we can just Hyperspace Fury as we see a nice Crocodile Sack, putting us in a decent position for later on, as it does live on 1, but then the poison obviously just takes out the prior turn, or the following turn. So, big Seismic Toad getting a kill there. Look at that. Sylveon's going to come out next. I'm going to go hard Glowking, because there's no reason for me to not save my Hoopa as a sack later on in the game. We're going to see the Latios come out, as I believe I have Future Sight. Not expecting a hard switch into it, but more so like something like Jellicent, I suppose. But that's completely fine. I'm just going to go ahead and Ice Beam this thing, do a clean 40-something%, and then sack off my Hoopa, as we do see just one more Psychic come in. And after the Future Sight damage, we can go into something like Zapdos and just U-turn out for a kill, or gain momentum as a Sylveon comes in, which is great. Now, if I would have Brave Bird, I think I just 2-KO'd that thing, but it's all good, because we just get into our Glowking, get a little bit more regen back, and we're able to throw off a big hit, which is great. So, Protect's going to come out as we Future Sight, so a completely free turn, as I do double into the Zeraora. Particularly why, I couldn't tell you. I think Sludge Bomb was pretty free there, but it's all good. We're going to see a Wish come out. I go back out into Glowking. We are back up at full minus rocks, which is awesome, obviously. We're going to get a special attack drop, which has been unfortunate, but then a crit Future Sight. knocking out the Sylveon, putting me in a great position for later. So, Seismitoad gotta come out here on the Cinderace, as it does end up taking some Rock's Chip there, which is obviously really, really nice. It's gonna U-turn out into the Lottie, as I do just Sleep Talk, and I believe end up rolling Toxic, which is best case scenario. And honestly, what I was kind of hoping for, being that this is like a Calm Mind Demon annoying Lottie, I wanted to make sure I got a poison on this thing, obviously. As Psychic's going to come out, it's going to crit us the second turn, which is a little bit unfortunate because I'm kind of going to be forced to sack off my Seismitoad, get some regen back on our Slowking, again putting me in a decent position a little bit later on, as a Psychic is going to knock out our Seismitoad, but as does the Future Sight. So Slowking just grabbing kill after kill this game with its Future Sights being thrown up in the air. Zera's going to come out next. I just Plasma Fist here. He goes Hard Scissor, which basically seals me the game, because a non-Mega Scizor taking Plasma Fist into Mega Scizor taking Plasma Fist does die after Rock. So you're going to see him get 2-hit KO'd here. And after the game, he's like, oh, damn, I probably shouldn't have gone hard into that, right? As Cinderace is going to come out, we are going to live a Sucker Punch on 26. Knock out the Cinderace, and then all that's left is the Jellicent that's at 39%, and it's not Wakan or anything terrifying. So we're going to be able to knock it out, put ourselves in a good position, and win 4-0 in a matchup that we lost last time, which is always really gratifying and awesome to do. So that's really awesome. I will be right back with semifinals. Alrighty, y'all, we are back with semifinals against TCK. Someone we didn't play this season, but we, up to this point at least, but we played him last season. He's a really cool dude, good player. One of the owners of the league. I think he's won this division at least once, maybe a few times. But he's got a really scary team. We're playing the Dragon Ball team. It's Dragon Ball Mega Sharpedo, which sounds like a lot of fun. Really cool core, alongside Buzzwole, which is scarier than Jirachi, Whimsicott, and Swampert, kind of rounding out the rest of the team to support some pieces. So it's going to be really scary. We'll see what we can do, though. So let's jump into our team, though. We have an Assault Vest, pretty offensive Slowking. If you look at his team, he really does not appreciate switching into Slowking, outside of maybe the Jirachi, which we can tag with a nice Shadow Ball. We throw out Future Sights the whole game, and we're just a genuine nuisance. Don't have Sludge Ball in this game, but I don't think we need it, really. Next up, we also have Zeraora with Heavy Duty Boots, Volt Absorb as its ability, Thunderbolt, Knock Off, Grass Knot, Toxic. Again, having something faster than Bolt guaranteed is really, really nice. T-Bolt plus Grass Knot hits this team very, very hard. In conjunction with knockoff or things like Pult, we can Toxic things as well in the switching things like the Whimsicott if we need to, as well as a Swampert like Knock and then Toxic it next time, and slowly whittle it down into range of Grass Knot, because it will take it if it's pretty split def. So it's just something we have to be careful of. Then we have a Choice Scarf Hoop Unbound, which just stabs Energy Ball, Destiny Bond, does really well offensively, can revenge kill a lot of this team, and is incredibly, incredibly strong in this matchup. Now, things have to be weakened in range, but if you look at his team, Dark Pulse, Energy Ball, Psychic, Dark Pulse, Energy Ball. Like, there is a coverage move for everything, we just have to click the right button. Hopefully we can be in a good spot. Then we have Mega Aggron, decently offensive with Heavy Slam, Toxic, Stealth Rock, and Earthquake. Yeah, just an overall good mon in this game. Good pivot into things like the Mega Sharpedo, especially, which is really nice. Unless it's Special Sharp, in which we have things like Slowking that can naturally take a hit, as well as our Hoopa and, different pieces like that. So another thing to kind of keep in mind going into this. Then we have a Life Orb, 4 attacks, Lycanroc. Pretty simple stuff. Stone Edge, Cell Rock, Close Combat, and Crunch. Just does really well. I kind of wanted Sucker on this set, but I just didn't feel like I could fit it for the Pult and the Jirachi. But Cell Rock is still going to hit at least the Pult very hard, and then Crunch hits both of those things really, really hard. And I wanted a reliable way of hitting the Jirachi, as well as the Pult, if it was like trying to set up in my face, and like it's like a DD variant or something like that. Then Scarf Zapdos, tried and true, just does really well in the matchup. If you look at his team, doesn't really appreciate flying plus fighting coverage at all. So yeah, let's see what we can do. We can go ahead and jump on into this guy. I believe I am going to lead off with my Hoopa into a Whimsicott. Now, unfortunately, I do not OHKO this thing. The reason I let off with this is because I could have caught like a Pult lead, a Buzzwole lead, or even a potential Swampert lead and caught it with an Energy Ball or something like that. Really anything besides Jirachi, Pult, and Whimsicott I was going to stay in on and just kind of attack, or not Pult, Jirachi, Whimsicott, and Sharpedo. But yeah, unfortunately, we're kind of going to be forced down here, but this is all good. We can just go into our aggro and get up our rocks pretty easy, at least in my mind. So I am going to go into that, as we do see a knockoff. This is completely fine. We're going to see the Whimsicott go for a taunt, which is definitely unfortunate. Kind of stopping on rocks. It's going to spam knockoff here, which is definitely really interesting, showing me maybe it doesn't have a better way of hitting me, or just trying to punish the switching, because you're going to see this is actually a Sash Endeavor Whimsicott trying to go down to its Sash and take that Heavy Slam, which is why they didn't switch out. And knowing that this thing is going to Endeavor, I go into my Zeraora. The reason reason I go into my Zero Aura is because, one, I'm faster. Two, I'm okay with being down really, really low in the sense that I have boots, so as long as I outspeed something, I'm not going to take any damage against it. So I can just kind of come in here and click knockoff. The problem arises though if it's like a Phys Def helmet pert, but I really don't expect that to be the case. I expect to be more Spadef in this matchup. So I am just going to click knockoff here. This is fine. We do force in the pert, and in order to kind of like punish rocks here, I'm just going to stay in Grass Knot. If he wants to attack me or flip turn out to gain momentum, honestly, I'm completely fine with that. Now I won't knock out like a Spadef pert from here, and it does look like he probably is that, being that my timid knockoff did that much. But yeah, I'm just gonna Grass Knot, do a clean 60, which is nice, and then Earthquake is going to take this out. In hindsight, maybe I should have Grass Knotted on the Whimsicott turn and then just 2-hit KO this thing, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. We're going to be able to go into Hoopa right here and essentially kind of force a KO. I'm going to Psychic because his Psychic resist / immunities just get rocked by Hoopa. Sharpedo is a demon play, especially with how good it is in endgame versus me. And Jirachi as well is pretty tough to go into on hard on a Hoopa when I can just click Dark Pulse. So Jirachi's going to come out here. This is fine. I'm going to go into my Aggron on the U-turn, which is a bit annoying as we're going to see the Whimsicott come out. I am going to elect to get up my Stealth Rock, which is on him clicking Endeavor instead of Taunt, expecting me to just attack him and knock him out on a Taunt. So I'm fine with trading my Aggron here to get rocks to chip everything down in range with things like Hoopa, as well as Lycanroc and Zapdos. I think is going to be really important, as well as this Whimsicott can't come back in, and I could just go into my Lycanroc the turn after and a Cell Rock. If I go for a Heavy Slam there, I really don't get much value out of my Aggron other than, I guess, another Shack, but I'm fine with going into my Lycanroc Dusk right here. So we're going to see a Taunt come out. This is fine. I just go for an Accel Rock. There's nothing the thing could have done to out-prioritize my Accel Rock and, you know, put me in a bad position besides maybe Stun Spore. Jirachi's going to come out next. I'm fine with just going for a Crunch to, one, pop this thing's Colbert, two, see if it's like a Scarf set or something like that, because that could be potentially really annoying for my endgame team, and I'd like to know that information now opposed to playing against it later, and I'm fine with stacking off Lycanroc in order to get some crunch damage and some information off on this thing. So we are going to crunch, our Coldberry is going to pop, and then we see a Reflect go up, but thankfully since we got the defense drop, we're actually going to be able to knock it out through the Reflect, which is great. Excuse me. Next up we have Buzzwole come out. I am going to save this thing, go into my Slowking. As you can see, we kind of just click a button against this team right here. Now, in hindsight, maybe I should have clicked something besides Psychic, as it was a pretty obvious pivot out here into something like Sharpedo, but realistically, I guess I could have just Sludge Bombed. Yeah, Sludge Bomb was pretty darn free, because I can always Revenge Buzzwole. It's not a big threat to me with things like Gyarados and Scarfrupa in the background. So Sludge Bomb was probably my best play. I could also bait a Poison on Pult, and no way Hard Pult comes in on a Psychic and takes a million, so Sludge Bomb was probably my play, but again, it's not the end of the world. We can actually live a non-Mega Crunch from this thing, which is what he is going to go for in order to get that speed boost, and thankfully we're going to knock it out. The reason I felt comfortable doing that was, one, because it helped me stall at that last Reflect turn if you did go for Protect. Two, if you went for a Mega immediately, then he's no longer faster than something like my Zapdos, but if you were to get, like, you know, that speed boost, or my Hoopa as well, so I can come in and revenge it. And if he wants to just attack me as I switch out into, I don't know what, he'll go ahead and just drop that Sludge Bomb, because we're pretty offensive. So I felt like it was my safest play just to stay in and click Sludge Bomb. Speaking of staying in, we're going to see Pult come in. Instead of clicking Shadow Ball, in case this thing is like a weakness policy variant, I actually like to throw a Future Sight. If he was like Specs or just Shadow Ball in general, he would have just killed me right there, and I could have kind of played around accordingly, gone into my Hoopa, whatever it might be. But this covered like weakness policy or even just regular Dragon Dance pretty darn well, as well as, you know, throwing up a Future Sight for that Buzzwole in the back as well. So I felt like it was pretty darn free. Now, because we have that Future Sight in the air, we can go into our Lycanroc, just click a Cell Rock, bring it down 33%, which is great. And we will go down, obviously, which is unfortunate, but since we're really offensive Future Sight, we'll be able to knock out the Pult from here. And, yeah, basically seal this game, because Buzzwole's going to come out, and we're just going to knock out with a Brave Bird and put ourselves in finals once again. So we're back. I would love to seal the deal this time and finally win, because we lost last season in kind of a body bag, but we'll see how it ends up going. I'm definitely confident. I've had so much fun with this team this season, so regardless of how it turns out, this was a really fun season, and SBT is a really well-run league, so I've enjoyed playing it at both seasons I've played it. So, yeah, that being said, let's do it. Finals time, baby. Alrighty, guys, we have finals here up against Slick. Slick's a very solid player. From what I know, he's been, like, tearing through a bunch of leagues at the time of us playing. Like, he won a bunch of championships in a bunch of different places. So we have our work out for us, and he has a really scary team between Mega Diancie. So Mega Diancie in finals again, cool. Great, especially considering I don't have great Dia counterplay depending on the set and depending on how we decide to kind of go around it. Infernape, which
rips me a new one. Greninja, which is very scary as per usual, gets up spikes and is just a general nuisance, and over the course of the game, it can kind of chip me in range. Zapdos, which I don't break particularly well. Ferrothorn, again, more hazards, and then Donphan for great hazard control, as well as switching to my Zeraora, and even potentially Zapdos in a pinch, so pretty tough matchup here, I will not lie. We have a pretty fun squad here. We have our Assault Vest Slowking, as per usual. Slowking, click Assault Vest button. I brought Assault Vest a lot this season. I mean, there are some matchups where I didn't. But I feel like in NCP we were able to use it a little bit better. Like the SummerSlam that you guys have seen so far, I think our first 3 games has gone up because we've been able to bring different things besides AV. So I think it's just kind of the nature of this team kind of forced AV Slowking a lot. But regardless, in this game, it does pretty darn well with Sludge Bomb, Future Sight, Ice Beam, Flamethrower. Just hits the team very hard and is a good pivot into a lot. Then we have a Heavy Duty Boots Zeraora, nice and mixed, Plasma Fist, Grass Knot, Fire Punch, and Knockoff. We have a Life Orb Hoopa, which I really debated over for a long time, whether or not I wanted to be Life Orb or Scarf. I ended up settling on Life Orb because if Slick ends up bringing a more passive and slow team, which you see he kind of didn't. There's 4 Pokemon faster than my Hoopa. He had a lot of things that were slower than it though. And I was hoping he'd bring a more passive team that I could get Hoopa in a little bit more and just click a button. Dark Pulse, Energy Ball, Psychic hits the team very hard. And then we also have Fire Punch for the Ferrothorn. Nice and mixed. Dark Pulse and a Fire Punch should knock that thing out unless it's Aqua, which is nice. If we see leftovers, we know we're good. Then we have AV, Tangrowth, Giga Drain, Focus Blast, Rock Slide, and Earthquake. Just max Spadef AV. It's going to be our main Gren check because we really struggle with Gren. And it's also a soft DNC pivot, whereas Slowking is kind of like our main DNC pivot, at least initially. But yeah, it just does pretty solid in the matchup overall. Then we also have a very Spadef Mega Aggron with Heavy Slam, Body Press, Toxic, and Stealth Rock Aruski. It's here again to get up rocks, spread toxics, and just be a general nuisance. And then we have a Protective Pad Zapdos. We are pretty offensive. I believe I'm pretty aggressively creeping. I don't remember. I think I'm creeping maybe Zapdos, creeping Hoopa, because I don't think he's going to go max speed Zapdos because he walls me anyways. I don't think he needs to worry about winning a speed tie when he just lives every hit to the edge of the earth. I'm hoping with our protective pads we can kind of Thunder's Kick into U-turn and kind of pivot around, slowly chip down that Zapdos, put in range of other things. If we're forcing Roost, then we can go into our Zeraora and just click Plasma Fist and hopefully break through the team sufficiently in that way. So yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into it. We are going to go ahead and start this game off with a Diancie lead into our Zapdos. Galar, I am going to hard switch out as I don't want to obviously just die to Moonblast. He's going to click Protect, revealing a moveset, which is a bit annoying in like a mind game with my Aggron. If I know this thing isn't Protect or it doesn't, it usually hard switches out on Aggron as I can, you know, maybe aggressively get at my rocks or something like that. Now, I can't really do that, or it would be a little bit more risky in order to do that. I'd probably have to Heavy Slam the first turn and then click afterwards, but regardless, we're getting to our Tangrowth right here, and we're going to just kind of be able to click a button. The real reason I went into like... Maybe I should have gone Slowking initially, but we're going to pivot out here into our Slowking, which is nice. We're going to see another Protect. Maybe I should have gone Slowking initially. It's kind of a weird game in general, but we're going to just Future Sight in on this Donphan's face. I'm going to make a pretty aggressive play and just click Ice Beam. I don't think he's going to Raw Earthquake with my Zapdos and especially my Tangrowth in the back. It just kind of loses some momentum because he's going to have to switch out anyways. So if I can Ice Beam, I can take this thing down to half and then, you know, potentially threaten it with a Future Sight in the air afterwards. So I am going to make the switch out into my Tangrowth now, expecting either an Earthquake or this Gren Pivot, which was a nice aggressive play, allowing him to kind of avoid that Future Sight damage that was coming out this next turn, obviously. So good middle ground pivot there because I wasn't Sludge Bombing. And I'm going to be able to go into my Tangrowth and just click Giga Drain right here. I'm going to try and go for a Focus Blast this next turn. We see that it is a Chople Berry Ferrothorn, which is fine. Spikes go up, and I'm kind of regretting not having any removal because it's going to be really hard switching around this team sufficiently otherwise. As the Zapdos is going to come in, you're going to see I don't have great ways of dealing with Zapdos with spikes and rocks up. With the U-turn, like, I'm getting all this back, but there's kind of a free pivot out. Very free pivot out, actually. So I'm going to go into my Zapdos. And the reason I go here into Zap is because I don't want to get my Tangrowth knocked. Because of the rocks and spikes up, I can't switch into Greninja if I do lose my Assault Vest. I'll just die to like Dark Pulse and Ice Beam or something like that. Or maybe even 2 Dark Pulses if it's like Specs or something, which it definitely could be in this matchup. So losing my pads on Zapdos is pretty annoying because now I have to be careful not only around the Ferrothorn, but especially the Zapdos. As you can see, it's going to come in right here, and I Thunder's Kick, and I instantly, I think, get parried. Yeah, pretty unfortunate. As we're going to see a U-turn or Hurricane right here, I get kind of bailed, and I'm able to U-turn out there on the miss, which is obviously very nice, and with the defense drop, I'm able to go into my Zero Aura as we see a knockoff come out into this Ferrothorn, and then a nice pivot into Infernape on our fire move. So we're kind of getting Rick Ross and 6-tossed right now. It's not looking great. I go into my Zapdos to try and sack it off, but we see a big Earthquake come out here. Definitely interesting. I felt like fire move or fighting move was just like very free, especially fire move, but regardless, we're going to go out into our Slowking here on a U-turn as the Zapdos comes in, which is a-okay for me, honestly, as I throw off a big Future Sight on a nice aggressive Greninja pivot. But I can go into my Tangrowth here and hopefully put myself in a decent position going forward. You see that Dark Pulse does 27, which is obviously nice, as I do go for a Rock Slide, hoping that the Zapdos would come in, because Rock Slide into Future Sight would have probably knocked that thing out, but really, it's all good. It's not that big of a deal. It's a good pivot by Slick, in all honesty, as we are going to Focus Blast on the Zapdos coming in, so he's really making nice middle ground pivots and ways of getting around, like, our regen core and, like, the coverage options that they have, and putting himself in a good advantageous position. So, next turn, the Zapdos, after it roosts, it's going to Discharge. I'm going to Sludge Bomb, trying to bait some damage as a U-turn comes out, which is honestly something that he can afford to do at this point, too. And I am going to Future Sight, and then Flamethrower, and knock out this Ferrothorn. Only issue is Greninja comes out next, and I can't really punish this thing for coming in. My Future Sight's in the air, but I'm not able to push any progress with it, because the Dark type is always coming in on that second turn when the Future Sight is hitting. So I'm going to sack off my Zapdos. It's also going to show me that he is not a choiced variant, which is good. We're going to see a Water Shuriken come out from this Greninja right here, just to get off damage on my Zera. I knocked off expecting, like, I don't know, the Donphan to come in, which it comes in right here. So I don't really understand that play from Slick, because I feel like his Gren was like really, really good in this matchup, and just sacking it off for no reason just didn't seem to make much sense to me, especially because, like, if Donphan isn't checking this thing, what is it doing here? You know, it doesn't offer anything. So you might as well sack it and get a free switch into your Scarf 8 that forces me out, or even Zapdos to U-turn and put me in range of 8, or a Water Shuriken or something like that. So I stand by that knockoff play. I don't think that was an overplay. I think that was just like Slick making a read to make a read. I don't know, and I feel like he's in such a good position he doesn't really need to, but again, it's not the end of the world. We're going to see Donphan come out. I unfortunately have to go Tangrowth this time, and I'm going to get knocked off. I couldn't risk this thing being Rindo and losing my Zero Aura. It would have been really, really, really bad, so we are going to go ahead and make that switch out. We're going to go into our Tangrowth, try and Giga Drain up. Unfortunately, it's not going to work out too hot for us, but we're going to be able to go into our Slowking on a Roost. And again, try and exert some type of offensive pressure, as a U-turn is going to come out, and Greninja is going to come hard out as we do Sludge Bomb and catch that thing, but we don't get a Poison, which is really unfortunate. Now, here I go into Hoopa, and this was kind of a dumb play, because I think I kind of went into this assuming that I was Scarf, and thinking that I changed it to Scarf, and in hindsight, at least looking at this matchup, Scarf would have been much, much nicer, especially because they eliminated the Pharaoh early. Dark Pulse is, like, ridiculously free. Dark Pulse and Psychic, as well as, like, the Energy Ball coverage that we have, just hit this team so damn hard. And I really wish I kind of stuck with my initial gut and stayed with Hoopa here. He is going to scout for that Scarf set. Now, I go for a Dark Pulse here, and I'm kind of wishing I went for an Energy Ball. I guess he was kind of hoping that Zapdos would come in, expecting a potential Energy Ball mid-ground or something like that. But if I just attack what was in front of me, this Diancie was gone, which is really, really nice. We still do 50% to it, which, don't get me wrong, that's obviously great, but it's not a KO, which is really, really unfortunate. As this next turn, Earth Power is going to come out, and we're actually going to live, because for some reason you went for Earth Power, and Hoopa has Chunky Spadev, and we're going to be able to knock it out with an Energy Ball. So I guess it kind of worked out the same way, but we would have gained initiative if we did sack off our, instead. So a bit unfortunate, but not the end of the world, like I said. We're going to see a Discharge come out here from the Zapdos. It doesn't paralyze, and we're able to get up our rocks. Next turn, the Zapdos is going to pivot out into Donphan, which is a bit annoying. I believe I just thought of a Toxic, being able to kind of whittle this thing down, and a Rapid Spin is going to come out. So we didn't really get much out of that exchange. As I Body Press, I'm able to take it down in conjunction with the Toxic Chip, which is, you know, a nice, I guess, in some degree. Surf's going to come out from the ground. It is in Torrent, so it's just going to knock us out. Tangrowth is going to be my next answer to try and take this thing on, as these Zapdos are going to come out nice and safe. I don't think he had Ice Beam if he switched out there, and we know, yeah, it's Black Glasses. We knocked it off. And we know it's not Ice Beam because he would have just clicked it there and won the game, but regardless, we're going to go into our Slowking. We're kind of going to get 2-hit KO'd, and there's not much we can do against his Zapdos at this point. We're kind of just flailing. We're able to Plasma Fist as this thing U-turns, which is fine, but Scarf and Fernape is also just going to be able to come in and win the game either as well. So there's not really much we can do. I kind of just switch around a little bit, which doesn't really end up changing much. And we're going to drop in finals again, which is frustrating. I don't know what it is. I actually started off my Draft League career 7 for 8, my first finals. And I think at this point I am 1 in my last 5. Like, I'm 1-5 in my last 6, I guess. So we're not doing too well in crunch time when it comes down to finals, which is definitely really frustrating because I'm having these really good seasons. I'm getting back into winning form. We saw we went through that like 2-month stretch where we just couldn't fucking buy a win. So I'm grateful and I'm happy that we're getting back to finals and we're like back in form and doing well again. It is frustrating though to obviously lose these kinds of games and lose when it matters the most, really. A loss in finals hurts much more than losing round 1 of playoffs or in semifinals. Like it stings, man. But Slick played well. He made great pivots. He was really aggressive. He got in his offense a lot, and we just got overwhelmed. In hindsight, I wish I was like not Zapdos and I brought like Seismitoad or something like that. It was a better rocker in this game. Or maybe I don't bring Aggron because Aggron was kind of passive and dog doo-doo this game. So who knows? Maybe I could have brought in a little bit better of a team. I'm not super happy with the prep or the play. But that's life, you know, we learn from it. So hopefully in our next championship game we can snag one. But just didn't work out this time. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this SBT movie, be sure to drop a like on the video as well as subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we're super close to 1,000 and I'd really appreciate it if you help us out along the way. Alright guys, I'll see you guys next time. Later.